Hey, what is going on, everyone? It's me, Mr. Mario, and welcome back to another episode of Mario's Minute. For those who do not know, this is the second podcast I do. My main podcast, Mod Chat, is a bit more edited, a bit more, tightly recorded, you can say, and such, where that's more focused on the world of video game modding, video game console modding, things I find new, interesting, just newer developments and such with a little bit of show and tell. However, this is not that. This here is my second podcast where I come on here and I talk to you all about whatever the hell I want to. Sometimes I have a guest on, sometimes I don't, and it's kind of one of those, low effort but a lot of heart type podcasts right here, where we kind of just, again, talk about whatever the hell we want to. It is available in multiple different platforms. First of all, it is available in a video visual form if you'd like to watch it on the Mr. Mario 2011 YouTube, Rumble, or Odyssey channels. And since this is a podcast, it is available in an audio-only form. Simply look up Mario's Minute on your favorite podcasting app, host, provider, or platform, and you should hopefully be able to find it. I know it's not available on all of them, but it is available on most of them. Either way, like I said, this here is my podcast where I come on here and talk about whatever the hell I want to. Sometimes I have a guest on, sometimes I don't. I do try to alternate month to month on there, and I will say here, this is the first episode of 2025, and this time around, I was able to actually, get on, reach out, secure a guest and everything, and get something scheduled. So, to my guest, who the hell are you?
Hi there. The internet knows me as CrunchBite. That's what I'll be going by. And I am the project leader of a little piece of software out there called XLink Kai. That's the main thing I'm known for. But I'm sure we'll find out more about all that as we go. Thanks for having me.
Oh, of course. Well, thanks for joining up. It's been it hasn't been all too bad scheduling this and everything, but I know we've been talking about this for a minute here, so it's good we were able to finally sync up on this.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So actually, even a little bit of background on here. You were saying, not only you're primarily known on the internet for XLink Kai and your work there, but I guess to initiate the audience, not necessarily on that, but with you and I, how specifically, or I guess if you remember, how do we know each other, if we're able to describe that?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I've seen your videos on YouTube. You make some great tutorials and everything out there.
Well, thank you.
There's several of them myself.
As long as they're helpful.
You and I have been in the... Oh, yeah, no, they're lovely. You and I have been in the same circles for a while, too, and bumped up against each other occasionally. We know each other through some mutual friends that you've had on here before, Durf being one of them.
Shout out Durf. Yeah, Harcroft as well, too.
Absolutely, can't forget Heartcrops.
Absolutely,
they've both been on here. That's right.
They have been. Yeah. And I promise I wasn't trying to say that to get compliments or anything. Far from that. Not that. Just ask how we know each other. I do specifically remember it, and I remember it was several years ago, and I don't remember which one, but I think it was one of the guest episodes of Mario's Minute. I had felt a little odd with this, right? Because same with you, I was familiar with XLink Kai. I had known about it. I had used it a bit before. I actually want to talk about the usage at one point too. But I had been familiar with it, and I'd seen your name, I'd seen your icon floating around and everything, and we weren't talking personally, but we at least had a mutual coolness with each other there. But right. I remember I felt bad about this because at one point, I want to say it was about almost 5 years ago now. I think that sounds right. There was some friends and I, they invited me to play Halo online, and we were trying some different builds of Halo and such on the Xbox 360. And essentially what had happened was we were trying to play initially on XLink Kai, and we kept having issues connecting, and we were double, triple, quadruple checking everything. We had checked ports, and we were just running into a lot of issues with that. And I couldn't connect to some people, and then certain other people couldn't connect to themselves. So it wasn't a necessarily it wasn't a straight through type thing, unfortunately. Then we ended up firing up Link. We had to change some of the settings on there, and then that was able to work. But that was essentially the story. I had shared it on a podcast here, and it wasn't even complaining about the services, more just no, this is what we were doing for land tunneling. We were trying this, it wasn't working, then we eventually got it working. Then I remember it was I don't remember who, but one of the people we mutually knew, they were hey, CrunchBite wants to talk to you. And I'm shit, dude, I wasn't trying to offend people. What did I do?
I remember this. I remember this actually, and my memory is absolutely atrocious, but I remember that, and I just wanted to figure out what it was you were stuck on.
Sure.
Because it's like, oh man, he got stuck, and they couldn't do their game night stuff like this the way they wanted to. Oh no, what broke?
and I'll be honest, for me, I'm one of those people. I'm like, I try to figure it out on my own, and I don't want to like bug the administrators of like these services and all that stuff, because I don't want to be like the YouTubers, like, hey, I'm a YouTuber, please help me. I'm like, no, I just want to be like a normal person on there. So I was like, we couldn't get it working. We figured out a way. We were able to play all that stuff. But I remember like someone said, hey, CrunchBite wants to talk to you. I'm like, usually when I hear that, I think that something really bad happened. So I'm like, oh God, okay, yeah, I wasn't even trying to talk shit on the service. What happened? What's going on? So we added each other, and then you were super friendly as can be, and you're like, hey, so I heard you were having some trouble on Link, and or XLink Kai, and I wanted to help out. And I was like, oh, I appreciate it, but like, well, we did that a few weeks ago, and we haven't tried it again. And I think it was you were trying to figure out what exactly the issue was, and I was like, well, look, man, we did it a few weeks ago. It was a one-off thing. Wasn't trying to say anything bad. It was more just me kind of telling a story. If we do it and try it again, and we run into issues, I'll let you know. And you're like, okay, cool. And then we never ran those builds again, so that's why I never contacted you about it.
Boy.
Yeah.
Well, funny story, because I went and dug into all the things that could have possibly been wrong, like whiteboarding it out. Okay, here's how the peer-to-peer connectivity works. Here's all this is. I found some issues, and I fixed them. Okay. And not only did I fix them, I fixed like very overarching design flaws from the original days. And well, design flaws isn't really the word. The internet was a very different place back then. Security was a very different thing back then.
Yes.
And ISPs weren't using carrier grade NAT, which is the same kind of NAT that your router does, the network address translation, but at a much higher level where you don't even get a real IP address. Mm-hmm. So incoming connections basically don't work. I have since been able to bypass all of those problems, and almost everybody, unless your computer's really messed up or you've got some crazy firewall, can talk to each other on XLink now. No configuration needed, no messing around in your router, nothing. You can even tether to a cell phone as your internet and play.
That's beautiful and impressive, because like as I'm sure you're more than intimately aware, you can't really change NAT when you're doing that tethering on a phone.
Exactly. You have no control. You're carrier grade NAT, and you better like it, damn it.
Yeah. I didn't even know about this until like it was a few months ago. We were helping out someone, but apparently they were having issues. They had like a very strict NAT, and we said, hey, change the settings, and I told them to talk to their ISP because they said they couldn't, and apparently they then told me later on, hey, so I called the ISP. My ISP is actually my cell phone provider because I tether off it, and I guess the way it was explained to them, essentially the carrier ended up saying, yeah, this is how the NAT settings are, and we can't change it because if we have to change it to open for you, we have to kind of change it across the entire network. So we can't change NAT.
Yeah. Carrier grade NAT's a pain like that if they don't have enough granularity.
Yeah. So that's incredibly impressive. Fantastic job on that.
Yeah, and the design for that and how to solve it was very much one of those like eureka moment in the shower kind of things. Mm-hmm. Of, oh my God, if I did that, that might actually work. Whoa.
And then it did.
And then go and dig in and go, hey, yeah, there's some gray area there in how these protocols work. I wonder if this works. Oh, hey, it does. Wow.
Do you know how cool that would have been when we were like my high school friends and I were like all suffering with like Halo 3 NAT issues where it's like one of them has a moderate NAT, some people have open NAT and they're showing it off, and then I'm sitting there with a moderate NAT not able to do anything, and then you got like one person with a strict NAT who can't play with anyone.
Yep. Fun times.
Yeah.
And like historically it's been one of the things that people had a lot of trouble with XLink was the port forwarding stuff.
Yeah.
So at some point we had added UPnP support to do it automatically. I should probably add Bonjour at some point for those like 6 people using routers made by Apple.
Yeah. Hey, those 6 people are important.
Then we've got the UDP hole punching. That's a fun one. That usually works out well for most people. And then when everything else fails, we've got a new system, which I haven't publicized, but I've got no problem talking about it. XLink Kai is no longer strictly peer-to-peer.
Ooh.
It is also centralized servers. But what's smart about it, and this is how it solves all these NAT and cell phone problems, is that it will only use the servers, which I've been calling relays because they're relaying your traffic. It will only use the relays if it can't talk to a specific player, because it makes the decision to do peer-to-peer or relayed per player in the same arena as you. So that way you're always getting the best, lowest latency connection possible to each person.
That's awesome. I just have to say,
if you can do peer-to-peer to one person, it'll do peer-to-peer. But if you can't to the other guy, it'll use the relay.
that's awesome. I do have to say, just like hearing this and like the passion and everything about it. So like I had to like feign the surprise a little bit because you did tell me about that before, the peer-to-peer, not peer-to-peer thing.
Oh yes.
However, I just got to be honest and say, like, XLink Kai and just like land tunneling overall, it's one of the most like impressive things that I've seen.
Yeah, it's a really fun from a technical perspective too, because you're effectively tricking the console into doing something that it didn't intend to do.
I know.
You're not breaking the rules per se, but you're doing something it doesn't expect.
You're not breaking them. You're just bending them.
Yeah. It's suddenly there's really high latency between these other players, but we're all in the same LAN. What's going on?
Exactly.
Meanwhile, it's across the world and the console has no idea.
Yep. Unless it's an Xbox 360 or something, then you got to have ping patch enabled on there. Unless
yes, thank you, Microsoft, for that one.
Yeah. Unless it's original Xbox, because funny enough, original Xbox games on the 360 will still work just fine with the LAN tunneling stuff.
Exactly. They don't have ping limits, except for there is a handful of games that do. I think there's maybe 10 or so, but the ping limits are pretty reasonable, and they're clearly because if you go over these, gameplay is going to break because of how the game's netcode works.
Well, I mean, that was 2001 console netcode, so...
Yeah. Things have improved since then.
Just a bit, yeah. I will say I've been tunneling recently with one of my best friends who's we've been playing. I guess we're starting to play through the Gears of War games because we're on Gears 1 right now. But it was funny because like we got it set up and everything, and I helped him out. We got it sorted and all that, and he's a dad, so it's like you give him instructions, he can follow it, and then he kind of just wants like a little bit of like no fuss on there. But the funny thing was he was telling it was because the other night we played together, I guess he was telling one of his coworkers about it, and the first time, because we've played a couple times now, the first time when we got in, it blew his mind that it just worked. Like, that was it. Like, he was able to, like, he went there on his system. He went to, like, join, like, System Link game, co-op, that's what he did. And even though it wasn't System Link, he was able to join me, so that just absolutely blew his mind, so he was dumbfounded. On top of that, it ended up working better than Nintendo Switch Online, which is what we both pay for, which is kind of embarrassing and impressive all at once. But then the other thing is, he was telling one of his coworkers about it, and his coworker, he said, like, he's co-oping Gears of War. And his coworker's like, no, you're not. What? You're lying. Because I guess people forget that it's still playable. Like, you could go through Xbox Live, because I don't think they disabled the services on that one. But, no, his coworker's asking how he did it, and my friend just said, like, honestly, dude, magic. Like, I don't know how to explain. It's just magic. That's how we're playing together.
That was through Link, I'm guessing. Their interface is really slick.
Yeah. It's just and I've tunneled before on a few different services, but it's just, that's what I love about it, where it's just, as you said, you're kind of tricking it, but I tell people in short, you're just hacking up the LAN protocol to play online.
There are times where you do have to do some shenanigans, like, some background here. XLink Kai doesn't just support original Xbox and Xbox 360. It supports 14 different consoles. I've been busy.
You have been. Would you say the newest one is the Switch, right, with custom firmware?
Yes. Well, not just custom firmware. There are games that also work on official firmware.
Oh,
There's
that's
a lot of
cool.
fun to be had there.
All right. And see, I was kind of assuming, because when I've seen so many game announcements, it says custom firmware required. So I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yes. Okay, so for Switch stuff, they're really sorted into two categories. There's the games that have real LAN support, and then there's the ones that are local wireless only.
Oh, got it.
So the ones that are real LAN, those will work on official firmware, and you can play with other people on official firmware, other people on custom firmware, against emulators, doesn't matter, it's going to work.
Beautiful.
Where it gets tricky is the games that only have local wireless. In those instances, you need custom firmware and a little bit of extra setup, and then you're good. There's a what do they call it now? A sys module. They renamed them a while back. For the Switch custom firmware that basically makes local wireless function as LAN.
Ooh, that's
And
nice.
that's how you can find each other. Yeah,
Okay.
it works really nicely. Then it's same rules as LAN, and XLink can pick it up and tunnel it across, and everything's all happy.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And the 2 Switch emulators out there, RIP to both of them, they support both of these things and also work over XLink. So everybody can play together as one big happy family.
That is awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I haven't set it up on my Switch at all because I'll be honest, whenever I do, like on the modded side at least, like whenever I'm playing anything, it's usually just local. Yeah, I haven't done like anything like online on the modded side, but it was a pleasant surprise when I started seeing like more Switch games being added on there.
Yep. And I'm sure there's probably a couple hundred more out there I haven't seen yet. How am I up to now? I'm currently at 221 confirmed working for Switch.
Congratulations. That is that work right there.
Yep. Yeah, and the postings you were seeing was I had a backlog. I didn't want to just dump them all at once. So it's like, all right, let's just post one of these a day.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Well, that way it shows too. It's just like, oh, hey, there's steady progress being done. So that's cool.
Exactly. Other consoles of the new ones haven't worked out so well. Like, if we look at PlayStation 5, it's got 3 games that have been confirmed to have a LAN. So that's not going to be terribly popular.
I mean,
If we look
at the same time, though, I think that's 3 more games than people are thinking the PS5 has.
That's true. The PS5 does not have games. The old memes are coming back.
They are. I love it.
Oh, goodness. Yep.
Yeah.
Xbox Series X and S, also a pretty sorry state with 3 games. But they at least have the backwards compatibility, as does the PS5. All of the PS4 games work on PS5, so you're good there.
Well, that's beautiful.
But on the Xbox, you've got things a little bit better, because you've got all of the Xbox One games, all 11 of them. Those work.
Mm-hmm.
Then you've got the original Xbox ones. There's 14 of those that work in backwards compatibility. And then for 360, there's 76 games that work in backwards compatibility that have system links. The tricky bit, though, is that Microsoft, in their infinite wisdom, kept the ping limit that's part of the 360 kernel in the emulator on Xbox One and Series.
I was going to say I'm not surprised by that at all.
But what's also pretty good about how Microsoft designed that ping limit thing, which was clearly, definitely just to trip up the tunneling applications,
Of course.
it only applies when you're joining a game. So if you've got yourself a modded 360 with the ping patch, you can join somebody who's playing on a Series X. As long as they're the host.
Okay. Huh.
So there you go. It's the client that needs the patch, but somebody who's unpatched can be the host.
Interesting.
So you're not completely screwed if you can't mod your console.
But it's just you're going to need a little bit. You're going to need an anchor in some way to get in.
Exactly.
Okay. See, I didn't know about that, so that's cool because like I just I really focus on like if I'm doing like tunneling or like I look into XLink or something, I'm focusing on the older systems. So it's like I didn't really even like I said the Switch stuff was surprising to me there, but like even with the Xbox series and then PS5, I did not know about that.
And the same thing applies to Retail 360 too. If you've got an unmodded 360, you can still be the game host. You just can't join it.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yep. But thankfully, the backwards compatibility for original Xbox doesn't have any of those restrictions on it, so you can just happily play.
No.
What's even great too is there's one of our moderators, Last Light. He regularly runs Time Splitters 2 game nights, and people are joining those on original Xbox, 360, Xbox One, Series X, and they can all just play together.
That's awesome.
Because the games all sit at the same patch level, and like people are just buying that off the Xbox store for a couple bucks and joining the game night.
Well, even
wonderful.
Even then too, they could even play on an emulator, right?
Yes, yeah, you can play on Zemu. I think CXPX also works. I haven't tested it myself. One of our other developers did. But like Zemu works perfectly. It connects directly in and everything's good. You can even play that on Steam Deck on XLink.
Yes,
It
I've
all
seen some
works.
people do that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of options to go and have some fun once you get through the setup, which can be trying at times, but
For sure.
stick with it.
For sure.
A couple million people have been there before and fought through these battles. You'll get
Yes.
through it too.
Yes, yeah, and the thing I tell people too is it's just like, well, look, if there's issues you're going to be running into, like you got to realize you're also trying to do something with the system that it wasn't intended to do. Same thing with the protocol that it wasn't intended to do, and then you're using all of these services that are freely available and like run, on volunteer time and dollars. So like the fact that it is working and up and running is astounding as it is.
Yep. Every few months, we have someone join the XLink Discord and be like, "Oh my God, you guys are still around? I recognize this guy and that guy's name. Wow, you guys are all here." It's like, yeah, we're still around. And often we get people that are like new to the scene. They're playing on Switch or something, and then they're digging through the website and they end up on the old website because we're currently mid-transition between two websites, even though it's been 7 years.
Dude, I have to say, I wrote this down. I love the Legacy website. That is one of my... There is a old... I don't remember which episode it was. It was on live stream, too. There's an old Mod Chat episode where we were talking about... I think we were talking about, like, a change to XLink Kai or something, and I brought up the site, and it was when, like... It wasn't, like, the nice one you have now. It was, like, the Legacy one, but I was like, look, guys, just look at this. It, like, takes you back to, like, 2007. And, like, I just wanted to say, I love the Legacy site.
I love it too, and the new site that we're coming out with sometime soon, we're in the very early stages, is going to be styled like the old site is.
Amazing.
I am very nostalgic for the old site and the full-fat Kai UI, which we can get into a bit. Kai has like 8 different user interfaces. It's complicated.
I mean, with something like this, yeah, I'm gonna expect complexities on that. But yeah, I'm just looking at here, and like I remember going to the Legacy site when it wasn't Legacy. Like I remember going to it, like, you know, almost 20 years ago. So it's funny when it's like I'm on a 1440p monitor and I just go there. It's like, oh yeah, it's small.
Oh yeah, it's just a wee little square in the middle. I experimented with making it bigger at one point, and it just didn't feel right.
No,
so
no. You got no. You got to keep the Legacy site. The Legacy site.
It will go away at some point. It is still written in PHP 5. The whole thing now lives in a container that it can't get out of because there's some sketchiness in there. Oh boy.
Fun times.
That is all code straight out of 2005 with 2005's conventions on how to do things.
Yeah, that's why, like, sometimes when people, like, especially like the bigger companies and such, when people get mad at like services and websites and such going down, and it's just like, you know, I'm not a developer, but you got to realize it's kind of a little more trouble than it's worth and kind of unsafe keeping some of these up. So in all honesty, I can understand when bigger companies do things like, oh, I don't know, like disable like credit card processors on old consoles.
Yeah, makes total sense. Exactly. Because eventually someone goes and looks in there and goes, oh my God, we did what? No, cut it. Disable this. Get it out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah. But going back there, one thing that's always interesting to see is when someone new to the scene, like on Switch or something, they end up on the old site and they're like, what the hell is this? Why does this look so old? And then they end up on the About page and it's talking about when XLink started in 2003. And they're like, excuse me? How old is this service?
Dude,
it's 22 years old now.
Yeah, this service can drink.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, this will be, if I don't take this will be a missed opportunity here. I wanted to tell you about my history with, like, how I got acquainted with XLink Kai. So, what was it? I had, like, the original Xbox was my first system, but I never had Xbox Live on it. Never played on the original Xbox Live until I actually got on the 360, and then tried it because I actually had online connectivity on that one. And then I don't think I actually played like OG Xbox Live until Insignia, funny enough. But at the time, and by that it's like, you know, playing on the OG console itself. But at the time, like the big game that I was, you know, really getting into online with for the first time was Halo 3. I was in high school at the time. You know, all my best friends, we were all if you weren't playing Halo 3, you were trying everything you could do to play Halo 3. Like that's how it was back then. So I remember after like the first few months it came out, like in 2008, that's when, you know, we were getting like a little bit fatigued with it and such. And we started going back, like some of us started going back to Halo 2. Like one of my friends, he was nostalgic for Halo 2 because that's what he really wanted to play. He knew I was kind of into the modding and all that stuff where I could do like, you know, like soft mod and Xbox. And then we were looking into like map mods and all that. And he started like learning how to mod his maps. So I remember he got XCAT. He started modding the DLC maps on his 360, but then he was talking about like playing them online and he didn't want to get banned. So then he started looking into this and it was like, he was incredibly good at Halo. And it was so, like, it was to the point I wish people could just see his skill level and then see his setup because the two did not correlate. Like, he was in a cold office on like the edge of his parents' house. Sometimes, you know, he had to share the space with them because, you know, they had like a computer, like shared computer setup and everything. But he had his computer there in like a typical like 2006, 2007-ish like setup there. Then on the left, so you had to like shift your body over, he had like a little tiny tube TV, and he was hooking up his 360 through composite cables to it. Like this was so budget and so janky, and he was able to play around with this a little more than us because his parents, like, you know, they gave him like a little bit more money here for it, but like they got him like a Dazzle capture card, and then he was like trying to like capture directly into like the parents' computer, and of course it was crap, but then he couldn't play, like he was playing on the preview window, so then he had to figure out a way to do it on the TV. So then he bought like a splitter, and it was able to record in color, but he could only play in black and white on the TV. Like, it was like, this is how it was for us, man. Like 14, 15, that's how it was. But getting to the XLink portion, he was getting into modding Halo 2 maps, and he was wanting to play them online, but also not get banned on live. So he started looking at like services and all, and I don't think he knew about Xbox Connect, but he found out about XLink Kai. He was the one who told me about it, and he was so excited because he was like, dude, I could mod my Halo 2 maps, go on to Kai, I can play them, and then whenever I want to play like stock Halo 2, I just restore my original maps, and then I can go on to Xbox Live. And that right there was my initial introduction to XLink Kai.
The classic introduction, and basically the same for me.
Okay.
Funny enough.
Okay. All right.
I had the same situation, and based on timelines here, I think I've got a couple years on you. When I was in, was it high school or middle school? I don't remember. Halo 2 was all the rage.
Of course.
But this was like, as the 360 came out, that was when I got a hand-me-down Xbox from a friend, bought it off him. My first proper game console, besides a PlayStation 1, which didn't exactly have the best graphics.
Yeah, but it's the GOAT.
I started
it's one of the
out
GOATs right there.
Absolutely. Love the PlayStation 1. Was playing it last week.
Yeah, that gunmetal beauty.
Even better on a CRT.
Ooh, yeah.
Yes. But I started out on Xbox Connect. And I, being a dumbass teenager, was playing modded Halo 2 and got myself banned.
On live?
No, on Xbox Connect.
Oh, really?
Yep. They didn't have very much moderation.
Okay.
But somebody found me, somebody banned me. And off I went. So then it was, okay, what am I going to do now? I can't afford Xbox Live. I didn't have the money for it. What's this XLink Kai thing? I hear they're the competitor to Xbox Connect. Let's give that a try. So I install that. I give it a go. Wow, this works really nicely. It's got some issues with the port forwarding, but once you get through that, you're good. Yeah. And there's a ton of people playing Halo 2 because it was like Halo 2's heyday.
Yeah.
This was, I think, just before Halo 3 came out.
Yeah.
But then I, being the little shit I was, started cheating again. And eventually, one of the moderators is like, hey, I'm going to give you one warning. Don't do this again or you're banned. And I'm sitting there going, uh-oh, there's nowhere else I can turn after this. This was the only other thing.
Yep.
I got to not get banned. So I started getting a little bit more subtle with the mods.
Okay.
But I was still cheating, of course.
So maybe not go into every single map with the Scarab gun.
Yeah, exactly. That's a little bit too obvious.
Yeah.
I started doing fun things, like apply the Banshee physics to the Warthog.
Oh, yeah.
Which amazingly worked when joining games. So I could get in, go over to the Warthog, do a backflip, and fly off into the sunset.
That's actually pretty sick.
I ended up getting the same thing working on the Scarab. Sorry, not the Scarab. The Scorpion too.
That's awesome.
Which was just great. Super fun there. And then eventually I ended up talking to that guy because it's like, how does all this actually work? What's on the inside of this? Because this is pretty cool. How is this all happening? And became friends with him. Eventually joined the moderation team after harassing the project leader at the time, being like, dude, I want to know how this all works. Show me. And eventually he relented and let me in, and then there's been a lot of time since then. That was a long time ago. But started with me getting banned from Xbox Connect for cheating.
You never expected you'd be heading this thing, though, did you?
No, and the funny thing is, the guy on XLink who caught me back then, he himself was cheating. It turns out, years later, he's like, yeah, by the way, on my Xbox, I don't have the invisible walls on my maps. So he could just wander out of bounds and come back in.
That's actually pretty awesome.
But he was also one of the most prolific North American Halo 2 players on XLink at the time. Like, he was on there like 4 hours a day.
Oh, wow.
Every single day. He was addicted to it. And to this day, whenever I can convince him to play some Halo 2, he just absolutely kicks my ass.
It's just muscle memory at that point, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, he'll go up the gravity lift on lockout. He knows exactly when to throw the grenade to blow you up as you're making that jump and push you off the edge. Yeah. He just doesn't have to think about it.
That's the type of stuff you don't forget. Like, I know, I mean, much smaller, mind you, but like my equivalent of like map stuff is like the map in Grand Theft Auto 3, for example. Like Portland, I know like the back of my hand. I feel like at this point, not Shores, yeah, no, Staten Island, I know pretty well. Shoreside Vale, not really the best, because you know you don't spend as much time there. But like those first two maps, I know pretty well. Like it's to the point, like Portland, I can complete all of the main missions on there without looking at the mini map. So it's
always like that for the games you played forever.
I know,
Like,
it just comes
and one
right
of those
back.
things you get. Like it's a similar thing for me in Halo 2, because I've just played so many thousands of hours of it over the years. I can recognize in a split second of screen peeking at someone's screen exactly where they are in every level. Just yes, I know that texture well. You're right over there. Boom, headshot. Done.
That's how it goes. The funny thing is, though, and this is something that I love, and I feel like that you can attest to this as well too with your skill set and such. And I'm not talking Halo 2. I'm talking about like all this, like the networking, the website administration, all that stuff. A lot of that's like you didn't know any of that, but right, and then you had to like learn it along the way, getting into Xbox Connect and then Kai, and then figuring things out. Right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And Kai is actually the driver for everything I know these days.
See,
it was the catalyst of all of it.
See, that's beautiful. I've been running into that with people, and it's funny because like right now, my girlfriend, she's taking a few classes right now where she is kind of learning more about computer hardware and such. And it's funny because she's been getting frustrated, so I've been helping her out a bit. And there's so many things, like it's kind of even some of the more like basic to like more advanced stuff. I was smiling the other night because I'm like, you know, I'm not like professional with this by any means. Like I don't have a cert in this, but a lot of this stuff that I can now help you out with, I learned and I figured out because of the Xbox and Xbox 360 and Xbox modding and just stuff like for example, like XLink Kai or like, you know, NAT issues. And it was kind of one of those things. It's kind of a born out and necessity thing that was really prevalent 15, 20 years ago that I feel like is kind of lost now because like, for example, like you and I being in that position, let's say 20 years ago, if we wanted to take our Xbox or Xbox 360 and connect to XLink Kai, we probably couldn't like rely on parents or like anyone else or like nobody else really knew what the hell this stuff was. So it's either you figure out what the hell this port forwarding is, you get the client on here, you learn about straight through crossover cables, how to connect things, all that stuff, or else you're not playing online. It's very simple.
Yep, and this was back in the days when video tutorials weren't a thing, so there was no one there to give you a nice organized overview of how to do it. Everything was forums or chat rooms, and even photos on the internet were a difficult thing. You'd have to go put it on PhotoBucket and hope it didn't get deleted for no reason and break a tutorial.
You had you had to compress your own photos.
Yes, and a side thing there, what PhotoBucket did, deleting all those old photos, was an absolute disaster for the internet. They broke a million ancient forum posts on how to do like car repair and stuff. Shame on you, PhotoBucket.
You know what the worst part about that is too? I have an old PhotoBucket. I don't care about that. I mourn for the other people. I don't care about it, but I still get, I don't know how long it's been. I keep getting emails saying your account deletion is imminent. You need to back up your photos. And I'm like, dude, you've been telling me you're going to delete my account for the last like 9 months at least. Like just I've been waiting for these emails to stop.
So just do it already.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, weren't you supposed to delete that months ago? So I don't know.
Boy, it's always fun when they threaten those things and then never follow through.
Exactly.
Yeah. But going back there, what you're saying about like the skill set I have now, it is very much because of XLink.
Oh, yeah.
That's what got me interested in networking and in a lot of programming stuff. And as a result, I went to university for a networking degree, which has a whole bunch of software development thrown into it too. So I learned to be better so I could make this better and understand it more.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful because there's
And then
and I figured, and respectfully, that doesn't surprise me all too much because like I can hear the passion there, and even some of the stuff that you've told me about, I'm like, okay, this dude's not just like a hobbyist, like he knows what he's talking about.
yeah, my thing I say these days is I don't play video games online. I help other people play video games. And unfortunately, that's very much true. I almost never play multiplayer games. My big thing lately is sitting here on the couch with a drink and playing Stardew Valley.
Oh, but you have fun with that, don't you?
Exactly. It's nice and relaxing. Sure, it's monotonous, but it's relaxing. That's what you need at the end of a long day.
Exactly.
But you're very much right. XLink is very much a passion project for me and the previous project leaders and the previous devs. It's been a means to an end of wanting to play. Like the original two guys that started XLink Kai, this was before Xbox Live existed, that they started working on this as a way to play Halo together. Those were two guys over in the UK, to XLink and The Daddy was the name he went by. Those were the original developers of it. At some point, I forget exactly when, probably around 2005-ish, late 2005, it was before I was involved, they gave the project over to the second generation of developers who were using it for the same purposes, a way to play online with their friends. And it was those guys that added PSP support and GameCube support. I think they might have added PS2 as well.
I remember seeing those, yeah.
Yeah. There was, for a while, talks about Nintendo DS support, but it turned out it was incredibly complicated.
Oh.
But the good news is we will be revisiting that and 3DS. No ETAs whatsoever on when that comes out. We're still
ETA
in the very
win.
initial
ETA
stages.
win.
We've got to build hardware to debug it first.
Fair point.
But we're getting there. It'll happen. There's a whole bunch of other fun stuff coming down the pipe, but more on that later. And then those guys eventually moved on in life. One of them at one point worked for Microsoft on Xbox Live, which was really funny to think about. Of like, you were one of the guys that did the main development work on the competition for Xbox Live on the original Xbox. Because Kai was before Xbox Live, Kai was after Xbox Live on the original Xbox.
Yeah.
And at one point, XLink was competing with PSN and winning.
What?
In the beginning.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Let's get into the weeds on this.
Okay,
one. This
yeah,
is a fun one.
please, let's talk about this.
Back in around 2007, 2008-ish era was when Monster Hunter was extremely popular on the PSP.
Yeah.
Extremely popular in Japan. To the point where we had 13,000 concurrent players on XLink in one game.
That's
They
impressive.
were all playing Monster Hunter. 13,000 concurrent on an online service in 2007.
Yeah, congratulations.
Made
That's
entirely
awesome.
by volunteers. Made by volunteers. But here's where it gets even crazier. For the PSP to work with XLink, it's an ad hoc wireless network. You can't just do that through your router or anything like that. So you had to have a wireless adapter in your computer that XLink would control and join your PSP's ad hoc network as if it was another PSP.
So optimally, like what most people would do, I'm sure, was probably like have like a laptop and wire the laptop in, and then use the wireless that's not being used for XLink, right?
Not quite, because
Oh, okay.
laptops were expensive, and you needed driver support for XLink. And here's where it gets even crazier. Multiple wireless chipset vendors explicitly added support for XLink Kai. in the driver.
Really?
And it's only just recently that they don't have it anymore. For a long time, every Realtek driver shipped with something called PSP XLink mode. And it's what would put it in the specific mode to allow XLink to control the wireless chipset properly.
Holy shit. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it gets even crazier. At one point, we had a hardware manufacturing partnership with a company in Japan called Planex, who were producing XLink branded wireless cards.
That's sick. That's awesome.
I'll send you a photo of one later. It's nuts.
I would love to see that. And especially, I mean, such a wild difference too compared to like now where like, I mean, there's just like a straight up like ban on like console modding, save modding and all that in Japan.
Yeah, it was a very interesting time, and it was actually the only time we ever got a cease and desist was from Sony, because at the time, and still to this day, there are a few PSP games that don't function correctly if there's a lot of latency between the players. So there was a tool made called Kai Aid that would get loaded on a PSP running custom firmware that would modify the games in memory to work better. It would do active patching of the game executable as you loaded your game in.
Got it. But it required custom firmware for that.
It required custom firmware, but the sticky bit was we were hosting the file that you had to download and put on your PSP.
Got it.
That's what got Sony upset. That's the only time we've ever had a cease and desist from anybody.
Got it.
Because that's the only time they've ever had grounds to come at us. Because, like, what are we doing? We're making your old and new consoles work for free?
Yeah, and they're like, no, you should be on our service, paying our stuff.
Yeah, and this was during like the peak of the Monster Hunter stuff when Sony's sitting there going, they're not on PSN, they're using this other service. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Fun times. That deal with that hardware manufacturer eventually fell through after a couple years because they, in their infinite wisdom, decided to make their own XLink user interface that was completely branded for themselves.
Oh,
and
that's
they had
nasty.
made their own installer that installed XLink hidden in the background and would launch their user interface and all that jazz. They basically tried to do a hostile takeover of the service. So we told them, get stuffed, we're done, goodbye. You're not allowed to use our trademarks or anything.
That's gross.
Get out of here.
That's gross. I've seen stuff like that before, unfortunately. And you did send me so Crunch did send me over some pictures of this, like, looks like a USB stick right here. I know it's like a wireless adapter and all that, but no, this thing is awesome. It says right there, yeah, it has like the teamxlink.org site, so I guess that's one of the other domains there. And then yeah, it's for XLink Kai Evolution 7. That's awesome.
Yep. Yeah, there was one point where the .org site was going to be the relaunch of a new version we had called XLink 1. It was meant to be a new UI, complete rewrite of the engine code, all that stuff. Didn't really pan out. To this day, we still own that domain.
It's okay.
Make sure you don't have domain squatters.
It's okay though. Microsoft ended up doing that. They just they took that same numbering scheme. They just did the Xbox One.
Exactly. Yeah. Microsoft and their wonderful, confusing numbering scheme because they refuse to have a number less than Sony does.
Yes.
Yep.
Exactly.
Really, they could just skip forward a number and people wouldn't notice at this point.
Yeah, no, but I mean, you gotta realize, I mean, they came from, the whole Windows thing. So we got 95, 98, 2000, Me, XP, Vista 7, 8, 8.1, 10, 11. So,
yep.
Yeah, yep. It's fun. I was thinking of that the other day. I'm like, yeah, it's funny.
Do you know why Windows 9 was skipped?
Isn't it because of all the dependencies? Because there was already 95 and 98, so there is 9.x and like those old, like, how do I put it? Those old like 9.x related programs don't work on the newer operating systems, but then even like newer programs would have issues with that because they would be looking at like, hey, this doesn't work on Windows 95, so this doesn't work on Windows 98, so it certainly won't work on Windows 9.
Yes, you have it bang on. It's because of the number.
Yeah. Yep.
So many applications were doing version checks by looking at the first digit of the Windows number. If they saw a 9, they assumed it was Windows 95, 98.
That was pretty much a Windows exclusive version of the Y2K bug.
Effectively, yes.
Yeah.
So Microsoft, during their testing, ran into this when they started doing third-party integration tests, and they realized that millions of applications were assuming the wrong thing.
That's hilarious. Did you? I don't know. Oh, go ahead.
No. Go ahead. Good.
I was gonna say, I don't know if you've ever looked into this, but did you know like the Y2K bug? Because of course it's infamous for like all this fear mongering and such, and then nothing happened. But did you know it was actually a real thing? And the reason why nothing happened is because there was so much prep work for years, so that when 2000 ended up hitting, it was just a thud like that. So all of these people who spent like there was so much money and tireless efforts preparing for this, and they succeeded in it, but because of public perception, these people quite literally worked themselves out of a job.
Yep, it's also the classic IT problem. When everything's working, what do we pay you for? When it's not working, what do we pay you for?
Exactly. Yeah, and this is of course long before I had a job or anything, but like apparently even people who spent like 3 years at that point working on the Y2K bug, when they were going to all these like resume workshops and such, people were like, yeah, no, you got to take anything Y2K off your resume. Like you cannot put Y2K on there. You're going to look like a dinosaur.
Oh, that's brutal.
Yeah, because then these people
because it was such a big effort.
Yeah, because then
it was successful.
It was, and then you have these people. They're like, well, what did I was getting paid well, and I spent the last 3 years doing this. What am I supposed to do?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a tough one.
Yeah.
And the fun bit is we've got another one of those exact same issues coming up. But thankfully, we've got more time to prepare. We've got the 2038 problem. Where Unix time in 32 bits rolls over to 0 and it'll be 1970 again.
Oh boy, yeah. I've seen. It's funny seeing that just because. What is it? Occasionally, I'll see things pop up where it's like, this song was not created on December 31st, 1969.
And yeah. Whenever you see that, you're like, the date's a 0. There you go.
Yep. Yeah.
But here's where it gets even wackier. That's really just a Unix and Linux thing. Windows has a completely different time standard that starts in the year 1601. So if you ever see that, you know that that's another 0 timestamp.
Good to know, actually. I was not aware of that one, funny enough. I more knew about the Unix one.
Yeah, Windows, the way that stores time is... Don't drive yourself insane. Don't look into it.
Okay,
it's
okay,
wacky.
I won't.
But they don't have that same issue because they used a much larger number of bits.
I think the closest I get to it is when I occasionally have to sync the time, and it syncs with time.windows.com. That's the closest I get.
Mm-hmm. Fun times.
Yeah.
So to finish my rant about PSP wireless stuff.
Yes.
PSP XLink mode eventually was removed from drivers a few years ago because Microsoft is pushing their new driver standard of NDIS 6, and Realtek did not port that feature forward, unfortunately. So the legacy way of doing PSP and XLink isn't really a thing anymore unless you're installing Windows 7 drivers, and that's getting a bit more rare. So we had to come up with a new method because people still want to play PSP, and the competing services are all kind of dead at this point. And that seems to be the main way that XLink ends up winning in the end, is just by outlasting all the competition.
Yeah. And to be clear too, it's XLink Kai, it's a fantastic service. It's really matured and it's awesome, but it's also one of those things, I mean this respectfully, it's it's not necessarily it's the best service, it kind of just kept going.
Yes, it's always been there in its slightly janky way and getting gradually improved over time.
Right. Yeah.
So we've got some new stuff for doing PSP. And to make things a little bit simpler, it's not built into XLink. There's a companion tool that you run called XLink Handheld Assistant. And it does the interaction with your wireless card. But what's great about it is that it supports thousands and thousands of different wireless cards instead of a handful of them. And they're modern cards too.
That's
the
cool.
tricky bit, though, is the driver version. You have to have one that fully supports ad hoc mode because for some reason, newer drivers are taking it out. Because Windows 10 and 11 don't officially support ad hoc wireless. It's still there in the code. It is usable. An application can trigger it and it'll happen. But the UI doesn't have it anymore. So drivers have started to remove it. So to get around that problem, I've started working on a new tool called, I think it was Kai Driver Installer, very creatively named, where it will go and look at what wireless card hardware you have on your computer, and it'll check its own internal database within the giant 100 meg exe, and it'll say, hey, I've got the driver for that is known to work for XLink with PSP. Would you like me to install it for you? You hit yes, and then you're laughing. You're good to go.
That's awesome.
And what's great is that exact same tooling and everything works with PS Vita and PS TV. So those can now be played too.
Works. I was thinking on that because I haven't played any PSP stuff online probably since the PSP was relevant, in all honesty. Just because even getting it connected to a router and such is a pain. But I was actually even thinking that with the, I guess I'll ask you this silly question. With the PS TV, if you go into if you launch Adrenaline, so you go into the ePSP on there, is it at least is it any easier at all, or is it even possible to use the Ethernet connection on the PS TV to play games online through that?
Unfortunately, you can't use the Ethernet connection. Okay. It will use the wireless though.
Okay. All right.
So PS TV and Vita have the exact same level of support in terms of games in that sense.
Sure.
And in the network functionality. So you can play them together. You can do PSP against a Vita through Adrenaline. It all just works.
Okay.
It's really well done on Sony's side.
Got it.
And because it emulates everything so well there, it also works on XLink. So you can play all of that.
That's
it's
awesome.
really nice. There is actually one game that has LAN support on the Vita. It's PlayStation All Stars, I think it was.
That actually makes sense. Like people who play fighting games, they really need that.
And it doesn't officially have LAN support, but it's in there. There's a patch you can put on that just brings it up in the menu, if I remember correctly.
Interesting.
And it's one of the few ones that will work over Ethernet on a PSTV or on a Vita if you've got the Ethernet adapter.
That's cool then. Yeah, no, I did not know about that at all, and I do like Sony Smash Bros, so that's great.
Good news.
Yeah. I mean, but also that's what it is, isn't it? I mean, we kind of just like lovingly called it Sony Smash Bros when we were playing it.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
So PSP and PS Vita are totally playable. They're more accessible than they've ever been on XLink. Not that there's really anybody trying to play it, which is a big thing these days. Like with these older consoles, there's already a smaller player base. And then there's an even fewer number of people that are going to know the service that XLink exists and are going to try it. There's an even fewer number that are going to get fully set up because you're going to need to go buy a wireless card that's supported and all that jazz.
Right.
And then you go through all that and you find there's nobody else that wants to play that game.
Yeah.
How are you going to find them?
Yeah.
That's the big hurdle at the moment, is getting people to organize a game night. So that's one of the things I've been trying to figure out that problem for years now. How am I going to do this? And I think what I'll end up doing on the new website is just build in a looking for games service. Like, here's the games I got. Here's when I'm available. Let me know. And if somebody shows interest, it sends you an email and stuff like that.
And then I'm sure even putting in, I guess, kind of like scheduled dates, having like a calendar or something as well too on there, where it's like, hey, this is like a game night that's happening. Here's the information for it. This is where we'll be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm going to try to do. You'll be able to go to the website. You'll be able to hit game night calendar, and there'll be, here's what people have planned out. And I'll do Discord integration with it too. Make it nice and easy.
Of course, that's going to be important.
Yep.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Yeah, because that's the thing I've seen with not just even like this, but I know like Insignia, for example, there's a lot of people where like they'll get set up, they'll get connected, and they're like, well, hell, there's nobody playing here. And it's like, yeah, it's older systems, it's older games. You're already on like a unique, like a different, like unique third-party service and all that, and so it's that's where you need to go more like grassroots with the community and such. And it depends. Like I know the Xbox, they do focus on that more, where there are like more community game nights, and I'll see like posts about on either like Reddit or Twitter or something. So there's a little bit more there, but yeah, I think that's it's unfortunately a struggle for like any service there. It was more, I would say, about 20 years ago. And this kind of going back to when like I initially knew about it, it was more prevalent and easier just because at the time the people I knew about who were playing on XLink, it was pretty much just the place for if you didn't want to pay for Xbox Live, which at this point, like by then most people were paying for it that I knew at least, or the other thing was if you wanted to mod your games, you could go on there.
Yeah. Or if you just didn't have a means to pay for it. Like my parents were like, no, we're not paying for an online gaming service. That's ridiculous. How much a month? No, get out of here. So that was my only option. I didn't have a means to pay for it myself. I was just a teenager with no job. So what am I going to do?
Right.
And that's also one of the reasons why I've kept XLink going all this time, is like, I want to be able to help people in that same situation that want to go and play even the newer consoles, and they don't have the money for the online services.
Yeah.
It's good to have an option for them. I
agree. And especially being able to get connected online, like play in ways that we can't before. Like you were just talking about the PSP thing where you like overwent all those hurdles in order to get that. And then it's like, okay, well, if we can like get some people connected online and play PSP games together in 2025 on the actual hardware, that's pretty cool, because there's probably not going to be too many people who still have a PSP lying around who are then going to meet up physically and then get connected that way.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And with all the improvements in emulation lately, I've tried to support those as well. When there's been a lot of efforts and there's been a lot of different tricky things to get emulators connected up.
Sure.
There was something I added to XLink a few years ago. I think it was back in 2020, I think it was, that I call Kai DDS, the Direct Data Socket. It's a UDP socket that emulators and stuff can use to talk directly with XLink and exchange Ethernet frames. So instead of your emulator, like for example, Zemu, because you can do bridge networking mode on it and play against real consoles on your LAN.
Yeah.
Instead of XLink having to sit there and watch for the network traffic on the network, you can tell Zemu to directly talk to XLink.
Okay.
And Dolphin also has this. They were actually the first ones to adopt it because I did the PR for it. And they were absolutely baffled that XLink still exists and has active players on like Mario Kart Double Dash and stuff like that. So there's a couple emulators out there that directly support it, one of which is a PSP emulator called JCPSP that's written in Java, works quite nicely. When we were initially coming out with Kai DDS, we had got in contact with the developer of that emulator, and he was over the moon excited to get that working.
That's cool.
And over a weekend, he did the full implementation of it. And it's now a great way to go and play PSP. Because it will just directly talk to XLink. There's no messing around whatsoever. It's just start XLink, start the emulator, go to the arena, play your game with your friends.
That's epic.
Super simple.
I love seeing and hearing about stuff like that. That's awesome. Well done.
Yeah, so we're trying to get support for as many emulators as we can, but there's a bit of a gotcha on it. We've been only adding support for emulators that you can also play against real hardware with.
Fair.
Because I don't want to create a further separation in this already niche thing. Mm-hmm. So like we've got support for Dolphin, JPCSP, Zmoot, CXBX, PCSX2, RPCS3, and Ryujinx and Yuzu. Mm-hmm. So those all work. And they work quite well. I've got some pressure lately to add support for PPSSPP.
Of course.
Which they don't support the ad hoc encryption that the PSP itself does and that JPCSP does. So they would only be able to play with each other, but there's enough people there that it's worth looking into and getting working.
Okay.
And it's sort of a when I have time kind of thing, because life is hectic.
Yeah.
But I'll get there.
Yeah, well, especially when all this is done like on a volunteer effort, absolutely.
Yes, and which is one thing that actually really confuses people. And every so often we'll have someone join our Discord and be like, okay, what's the catch? Like, how are you paying for this service? Like, what are you getting out of this? Are you selling my information? What's going on here? And no, we're not doing any of that. We're not making any money. We don't accept donations. We're not selling any information. We don't run ads on anything. I just want you to have fun.
Yeah.
There's too few things left on the internet that are just completely free, and go and use it and enjoy. That was something that was really important to me when I was first using XLink just as a player, was this costs me nothing. It's not in my face trying to sell me any sort of sketchy ads on the sidebar. It's just works. I can go and play my game. It wants nothing from me. And I've kept that going ever since. I can afford our monthly expenses. They're not that high. They're not low, but they're not that high. But it's worth it to me so that I can give other people that experience and just something that just doesn't want anything from you. All I want is for you to go and have some fun. Maybe tell your friends. Get them in a game night. That's it.
Do you by chance see it at all as like this is your contribution, your way of keeping that old internet alive?
Definitely. It's very much a preservation thing as well. Because like there's the preservation of gaming materials, the games themselves, the consoles in museums and all that stuff. I'm blanking on the names of the various efforts out there these days. Video Game History Foundation, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But they're not preserving the ability to have the experience of the online play. And while XLink doesn't necessarily have like the matchmaking stuff that Xbox Live has and all that, you can at least still play.
Yeah.
So that's all there. Like 14 different consoles, all of the ones out there basically that have Ethernet support, we have.
Yeah, and that's no small feat
In fact,
at all.
I think it might be every like mainstream console that has Ethernet works. Like even the Wii, even though there's one game and you have to use a mod to the game, it does work.
I am curious, which game is that?
That would be Mario Kart Wii.
Okay, that makes sense.
There's a patch to it to add LAN support.
Okay.
But one of the weirdest consoles to use on XLink is actually the Wii U. Because it's got 4 games, 2 of which are Call of Duty games. And let me tell you, Call of Duty on a Nintendo product is strange.
It is. I have I don't think I have Ghost. I do have Black Ops 2 on the Wii U, and it's Black Ops 2 on the Wii U.
Yeah. But one of the features it has that's unique to the Wii U that I think is amazing is that you can do split screen, but not split screen. You can have, if you pair a Pro controller, you can have one person play on the TV and one person play on the tablet, and you have your own screens.
That's actually pretty cool.
It's awesome.
See,
It's such a cool way to play it.
That's the type of stuff too where like you see with the Wii U and it's like, oh, there were developers who were actually trying at the beginning, and then the Wii U kind of just fell off. So then that's why they stopped, like Activision stopped developing on it, Ubisoft stopped developing on it. I know who was it? Shout out to Adam Korlick, but like he loves the Wii U, and he's told stories where he's like gone to Ubisoft, gone these places, and he said like literally he's gone to Ubisoft. They had just dust caked and covering their Wii U dev kits. They didn't use them. And then when he called them out on it, like he was like, oh, that's a Wii U dev kit. They just looked at him dumbfounded. They're like, wait, you know what that is? Like, you know what the Wii U is, first of all? Secondly, you know that's a dev kit? What?
Oh, good. Yeah. It's so sad what happened to the Wii U. It's just a classic case of just the wrong name and they screwed themselves.
Yeah.
It's such a fun console. It got so many good games in the limited time it had, and it is an emulation beast, that thing. Like, it is like the Wii on steroids, and it's really interesting to see the lineage there in the Wii U of like, okay, they've got the UI elements here from the 3DS, and you could see they were trying to do the Switch, but they were too early. They didn't have the technology just yet.
Yeah, it's pretty
and then
much
in the Switch, you can see like the direct lineage of like, okay, yeah, here's what they were wanting to do with the Wii U and they couldn't pull off.
Yeah, because to me, I've always looked at the Wii U as like a prototype Switch. I remember even like when I first got my Wii U, like I think the first night I had it, I ended up like I took the gamepad to bed and I was playing in there, and then I was having issues because I was in like an apartment, like an old apartment where it was nice, but it was concrete and bricks, so it didn't translate very well through the walls. But I remember playing the Wii U so many times, and I was like, you know, the system is cool. I just wish it was just this in my hand. Like, I just wish it was the gamepad, and that would be perfect. And that's what the Switch ended up being. It's not my main Wii U. I'm sure you could understand this. It's like, I end up picking up a Wii U for like a pretty affordable price years ago, and then ended up setting it up because my brothers wanted to play some games on it on the Wii side, and then it kind of just never left the game room, and then we've been actually using it a little bit more, so I end up redoing it. But I will say, like the mod on there and such, I will say it works really well for our interests, but it is also a severe underutilization of it, because essentially we use it as a Wii with HDMI out built into it. Like, even to the point where like we have the Wiimotes and nunchucks out and everything, and I even set it up so that when you turn on the Wii U, it just auto boots into the VWii.
Nice.
Yeah.
And that's the perfect example there of how badly Nintendo marketed this console. Like, it has full backwards compatibility with the entire Wii library.
Yeah.
Pair your nunchucks, plug in the sensor bar, off you go. But no, people thought it was a tablet accessory for the Wii. Why am I going to buy that?
Yeah.
No, it's a new console. The marketing was so bad. You could have called it the Wii 2 and made billions of dollars.
Yeah, well, that's why that's what they're doing with the Switch too. And I know with that as well, even the promotion, it's like, you got to remember with the Wii, everybody knew, my parents knew we would like to play. And then when the Wii U came out, I think they were trying to do demos and advertisements for it at Pottery Barn.
Oh, goodness.
So they were so off the mark there, and that's why if you look at the sales numbers, the Wii sold about 101.5 million worldwide, and of course because it was a runaway success. And then the Wii U, I had a feeling it was always going to sell lower because it's really hard to make lightning strike twice in the same place. Yeah. But it dropped down to 13.5 million, and it's like, that's a huge drop off right there.
Yeah. Absolutely massive drop. They completely missed the mark, and probably entirely because of the name.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
They just shot themselves in the foot.
Absolutely.
And actually, one of the features I wish the Wii U retail versions got that dev kits have is you can pair a second tablet controller to a dev kit.
Yes.
And because the Wii U is capable of 2 video streams, you can do 2 tablets.
That's cool.
And apparently the radio in there is capable of handling 2. I wish it had launched like that, and they would sold second tablets, because how great would that be to do the split screen in Call of Duty and things like that, where you both have the same experience.
I
you're
think
both on the handheld, you're sitting there facing each other going, oh, you got me that time, you're not getting me again, and you can't screen peek or any of that.
I think people even like dreamed of that in like 2012, 2013 with the Wii U. Like, we were like kind of expecting or hoping for that, but yeah, that ended up not happening. I think even with the VWii side as well too, I was gonna say, because I thought of this within the last week or two. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the Wii U is the latest console that like it's the last console we got with true actual backwards compatibility.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because I
Like
mean,
like the stuff that has the Switch has now, it's all repackaged emulators, and it's not even the virtual console stuff. It's a curated list of only these things. It's not the same thing.
yeah, yeah, and I guess we do have it with like we have like Xbox Series can play Xbox One games, and then PS5 can play PS4 games, but even that doesn't feel quite the same to me. And at a technical level, I mean, it's different, but it's not. But then when it comes to like for example, playing PS1, PS2, PS3 games, you can't just like pop in a disc and do that. And even on the Xbox, yeah, even the latest one, Xbox One, Xbox Series, as you know, it's like even if you have, first of all, you have to have a compatible game for Xbox or Xbox 360, but then you have to re-download the data for that because you are essentially downloading a Xbox One or Series package of that game.
Exactly. It's not using the disc whatsoever. The disc is used as a license,
Yeah.
which then gets attached to your account, and you go and download it from the store.
Yeah.
The disc is never touched except to go, yep, you own the game.
Yep. Yep. And then it introduces some odd things as well too. Like I think, for example, if you have the Xbox version of San Andreas and you pop it in, it will download the 360 version. But then there's other times it's beneficial. I think I again shout out again like Adam Korlick. I think it was one of those games on 360 that was like a Game of the Year edition, might have been like Borderlands or something, where it had like an expansion disc with all the expansions you can install in it. And I think some of those games, if you put in like the standard disc, it will load up as that game. But even if you just have the expansion disc, which like those are really cheap to find sometimes, if you load that up, it will load it up as the standard game as well too. But like it's even a mix of like it's like a cross type thing, because like if you put in the standard version of the disc, you end up getting the game with all the downloadable content. But then if you just put in the DLC version of the disc itself, you still get all the DLC plus the base game to play.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
So they've either categorized it wrong or they just don't care. They go, yeah, he's got the thing, whatever.
To be honest, I think they just don't care. I think it's that, because that's something that they could fix up. But the fact that like it's been years of that, I think they just don't care. They're like, whatever, you're playing on our ecosystem, you're gonna spend money here, it's fine.
Yeah, you're playing a 20-year-old game, we don't care. Have fun.
Exactly.
Exactly. It's the easy hook to get you in.
Yeah.
It's a don't give friction there. Just get the person happy, get them playing the game. They're going to stick around.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And in terms of backwards compatibility, I think the only current gen console we have with true backwards compatibility is the PS5.
Yeah, which is
My understanding of its implementation for playing PS4 is it's actually just running the games.
Yeah.
Off disk, same as the PS4 does. It's just got some extra compatibility stuff in there so that it can still use the older versions of the PS4 SDK and everything will function okay.
Yeah. So you do,
But like,
you do have that ability on there, but even then, it's like, well, you don't have PS1, PS2, PS3. You don't have that on there, unfortunately. But we at least have PS4.
yeah, they cut that. Yeah, we at least have PS4, and that was a genius move by Sony's part, because it meant that on launch the PS5 could go and play your existing game library. You weren't stuck with the like 6 games that existed at launch. And I just find it hilarious with Concord that the PS5 lost a game.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it did. That game was on the market for like it was live for less than a month, right?
Yeah, it was a couple weeks. It was barely anything until they got the plug pulled on that. But like it lost a game. Come on now.
Yeah. It's bad too when like a big company like that, they're even, because didn't they refund people as well, like who got like digital? I think they refunded people.
Yeah, the whole refunding of games on a large scale like that really started with Cyberpunk, and this was like the second instance of a very large thing. They just refunded everyone.
Dude,
and it was also a like, you bring in your physical copy to the store, yeah, we'll give you the money back.
The biggest one I have seen, and it's when this is one of those things where it's like, look, we are so embarrassed, we messed up. We don't want anybody to talk about this ever. Like, please forget. Stadia, you got to remember, that service was available for years, and they refunded everybody everything. I was shocked. Like, they said
everything.
They said if you paid for a membership, if you paid for a pro membership, if you bought games on here, if you bought hardware like the Chromecast or the controllers through this, just either wait for it or contact us. We will refund everything. And at that point, I was
That's
like, wow,
wild.
they really... Because when Stadia went offline, you got to remember, there wasn't that much, like, backlash or, like, dancing on the grave of it. Like, people were kind of just okay with it. And I think that was intentional because they refunded everyone everything. So if you were invested in Stadia... Apparently, from what I know, like, when it worked properly, it worked well, but you could have just been playing, like, premium Stadia for free for years.
Goodness. Well, they definitely pulled a good move there in terms of PR and refunding everyone, because they basically just made everyone forget. No
Yes.
one was angry, as you said. It was just, all right, we washed our hands of it. It's gone.
I'll be honest, the
Wow.
only reason why I'm still reminded of Stadia so often is because in my game room, and whenever I, like, leave and go upstairs, I end up passing it, I still have the Stadia controller in the box pretty much on display right there. It has... I did apply the final patch to it, which allows it to operate as a Bluetooth controller, but I see it there often enough where that's why, like, in my head occasionally, like, every few months, I'm just like, oh, yeah, Stadia.
Oh, yeah, remember that? Yeah.
Yeah.
And, like, you're never going to go and use that controller in the Bluetooth mode. There's better controllers out there. Like, just pick up a Series X controller.
You
and you're
know,
good.
It's not a bad controller, though.
True. They did good on the controllers. That's true. But just everything else is supported so much better.
Yeah.
And actually,
I got a free
that's one of the
Chromecast
things.
Ultra out of it. I can't hate that much, but yeah,
Oh,
you were going to say one of the things?
One of the things that's interesting out there is, and it's something that actually put me off, because I got a Steam Deck back when they came out, and wonderful console, wonderful handheld. It feels great in the hands. It's basically what I wanted the Switch to be in terms of size and hand feel. The way you can just pair a controller over Bluetooth and all the icons on the UI switch to that to match that type of controller, so nice.
Yes.
You pair an Xbox controller, it switched to Xbox icons. You pair a PlayStation controller, PlayStation icons. All the menus switch. It's wonderful. So well integrated. But one of the things, sorry, I need to remember to breathe. One of the things that threw me off with that console and made me kind of want more was that it was too easy. There was no fight to set it up. I took it out of the box, I plugged it into the wall, I signed into Steam, I installed a game, and I played. There was no fight. There was no tinkering like you have with a PC game of finding the right settings. Everything was just perfectly tuned out of the box.
Sure.
It was weird of, like, not having a struggle and missing having a struggle.
I actually...
There was no tinkering.
I have run into some things, but then that's been because of my own stuff where it's like I'm trying to add, like, unsupported games or do, like, a different configuration or run mods on unsupported games, or I had to go in and essentially blow out and delete all of my video settings on there, like monitor settings and such, because I was trying to hook it up to my capture card and it wasn't displaying properly and it was doing all these things. So you have to, like, essentially go in, delete all of your all of your settings for, like, monitors and TVs you hooked it up to in the history of it from your file system, then connect it back up. Then you have to go in and actually edit the text file. So maybe that's the type of fight that you were looking for. Maybe that's what excites you.
Yeah, that's what was missing, the getting into the weeds to get it to work. But at the same time, I'm kind of glad I didn't have to do that. That sounds terrible.
Yeah, it was annoying, but the nice thing is, the beautiful thing is actually about the Steam Deck community is pretty much any issue you run into, someone else has, and there's documented fixes for it.
Yeah, that's the wonderful things with these kind of communities. Yeah, really nice how people... You go searching, someone's had that problem.
Yeah.
And hopefully you can find it. Yes. Thanks, Google, for breaking Google search. Yeah.
Oh, dude, it's so bad now. Yeah.
And one thing I really love about the Steam Deck is, much like the Switch, playing it docked with a controller plugged into your TV, it's a wonderful experience. It's a great game console.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's been good. I've enjoyed it. I will say, with my TV stuff, I so underutilize it, because pretty much when I'm playing something on the Steam Deck, I'm in SteamOS, I'm playing it in handheld mode. But if I have it hooked up to my TV, it's probably running Windows 11.
Yeah, I've never tried running a different OS on it. I've only ever used SteamOS. Yeah. So I've had that, like, seamless plug it into the TV, there it is experience. But one of the things I had that was surprising for it is there was one point where I was like, you know what? I'm going to play some Minecraft on the TV. I haven't done that in a million years. And I'm going to use the PC version. So I go on the Steam Deck, I put it in desktop mode, I go and download Java Minecraft. And then I'm sitting there going, why is the text so small and the frame rate kind of crap? What's going on? Then I realized it was outputting to my TV in 4K and running in 4K.
Yep.
At like 40 FPS on a handheld. I'm sitting there going, what? what the heck? Yeah, that was a bit of a surprise. I had no idea it could do 4K because I've never seen it mention it.
Yep. Yeah, because
there we are.
It's got that standard there on it. You know, it's so funny you mentioned that because I had this written as a note, and it's like, you know, I didn't even think we would talk about it, but I just got to bring this up, man. So you've been, how do I put it? You've been used to the goodness of 60 hertz with games and such, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Same with me. I was blessed with that. Last month, I actually ended up traveling. I traveled to Europe for about a week and a half or so. And at one point, I ended up plugging my Steam Deck. And real quick, also, I run Windows 11 on there as well, too, because I pretty much use it as my laptop. So, because at the time, I was like, I want a new laptop and I do need to upgrade mine, but I don't want to put any more money into my old laptop I have. And if I go and spend like $500-600 on a laptop, I'm barely going to use it. And I was like, wait, the Steam Deck is a computer. I could just dual boot. So that ended up fixing that for me. But what happened was, I remember I hooked it up to the TV there, and I just noticed for like 20-30 minutes, like it was a little sluggish, right? Then I end up thinking of going into the actual resolution settings, and I saw that I think it was running at 4K. So I did end up turning that down because that wasn't needed, but it was running at 50 hertz. And it was the first time that I had really experienced 50 hertz, and I got to pour one out for my homies across the pond because that was horrible. And I ended up like even putting up like an Ed, Edd n Eddy clipped meme about it like online, and it was just essentially when all the seagulls come out of Ed's bed and Double D is just like, Ed, how can you live this way? And that's how I felt with all the Europeans. I'm just like, how did y'all live with 50 hertz? This is bad. I only experienced it for like 20 minutes and I hated it.
Yep, they were missing out on, a sixth of their frame rate.
Yeah, it's noticeable, and I understand, and I mean, the real answer is people said, well, that's all we had, so we were used to it, and I'm like, okay, I do get that, but man, like, being 60 hertz at minimum all my life, and then going over and experiencing 50 hertz, I'm just like, there's something wrong here. Like, even just, I wasn't even watching or playing anything, man, I was just navigating the Windows desktop, and I knew there was something wrong.
Yep. It's so interesting that it dropped to 50 hertz. It must have been something to do with the monitor. That's interesting.
Yeah, because I was.
How would it know?
Yeah, I was just hooking up to like whatever like TV we had in the place there, and yeah, it just defaulted to 50 hertz.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Always interesting when you run into something like that. And actually, in terms of tinkering with the Steam Deck, I did basically the only thing you could do in terms of tinkering, and I upgraded the SSD in mine.
Oh, okay.
Because I had bought the base model, the 64 gig with eMMC. It wasn't even NVMe.
Yeah.
And then I just went on eBay and was like, 256 gigs for $25? Yeah, I'm in. Okay. And absolutely seamless update. You put the thing in, you boot off a USB because there's no OS on it at that point, and reinstall SteamOS and you're back. Dang, NVMe on that thing flies.
I probably should have done that, but I just ended up getting the 512 gigabyte model because I was like, I just kind of want to boot it up and play. I don't really want to tear into it just yet, but I have taken it apart. I have the Deck HD installed on mine, and it works. Like, it's fine, and even like taking everything apart, wonderful experience getting into that thing. Like, it was built wonderfully. I think even correct me if I'm wrong, but I think even iFixit, when they checked, like, they gave it like a repairability score, I think they gave it a perfect 10.
I think they did, yeah.
Yeah.
And I gotta hand it to Valve. The way you've designed this is amazing. All the controls inside are their own boards connected by ribbon cables. Something breaks, only that part broke.
Yeah.
And they will just sell you a joystick.
Yeah.
It's lovely.
Yeah, because they know who they're appealing to, and they know who they don't want to piss off, and they know how not to piss off their customers.
Yes. Let people inside the product. It's just Phillips screws.
Yeah.
Let people in there. There's no warranty seal that gets broken, or if I'm wrong, there's a single one, something like that. But you can just go and look up the manual on their website. It tells you, here's how you reinstall the OS. Here's how you swap out a joystick. They've got instructions for it. It's lovely.
I think even the closest they ever got to like putting a Danger Doom type thing on there, and I don't believe there's any warranty seals on there, but the closest thing they got is they were like, yeah, so if you get the 64 gigabyte model, you can take it apart and put an SSD. We don't really recommend doing that because we don't really want you guys to take your systems apart, but like, it's possible. You can do it if you want.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if there was any sticker in there at all. It's been a while since I opened mine up.
To
Let me
my
grab it and take a look at
to
the
my
back.
recollection, there was none, and especially, I mean, that would make sense because well, warranty seals like that have actually always been illegal, at least like in the United States. But it wasn't until the last 10 years or so where there was like more legislation put on that, where it's like, hey, all you companies putting warranty seals on there, those have been illegal. Stop doing it.
It's not so much illegal as much as unenforceable as a voiding thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So they're really only valid as a tamper seal.
Well,
I just looked on the back of mine here. There's nothing. So I'm probably misremembering it, that there's no seal.
Yeah.
But when you're swapping the SSD, it's actually really, really obvious that you've been in there because there's a adhesive foil over the SSD as a EMI shielding.
Yeah.
And to swap it out, you got to peel that off. So it looks like hell when you put it back on, but it's still going to work.
Yeah.
So you can tell I was in there because the foil's all crinkled.
And I think even, I want to say even like all the companies who have done it now, because I mean, it's right to repair and such in the way they're handling that legislation now, when it comes to like the no warranty seals and everything. I believe the way they are handling it, like I'm talking like Nintendo, Microsoft, Sony, it's essentially, if you end up opening up your system, even if there was a warranty seal, like for example, like the PS4, even if there was a warranty seal and you popped it open, if you open it up yourself, they cannot turn it down for warranty. What they can do though, is if they get into the system and they can determine that there was any damage that was caused by you or someone else going into the system, they can close it back up and send it back to you and be like, no, this console was tampered with already. We're not going to do this. But if you just like opened up the system, blew out the dust, cleaned it up, closed it up, and then like 3 years later, all of a sudden, you know, the GPU goes out on it or something, no, they can't turn that down.
Yeah. My understanding is that that's the same thing in the US for automotive stuff.
Yes.
So if you've done car mods, they have to prove that your modification caused whatever damage you've taken it into the dealer to have fixed.
Yes.
So same thing now is on your electronics, which is great. That's much better for the consumer, for sure.
Oh, so much better. Yeah. Man. Yeah, you know, I do want to bring this up here because I know we are kind of, we're running into time a little bit here, but I still want to discuss it. XCAT.
Yes, XCAT. We should talk about that. We should talk about like other things I've done.
yes, please. Yeah, this has been exciting. I am a proponent of XCAT. I will be honest. I thought it was really cool from the beginning. I'm sure you've seen. I did a video on it. But on top of that as well too, I've been so shocked in a pleasant way. But I've been so shocked as to how useful it's been, how the word has been getting out on it, how it's pretty much recommended anytime I see someone pick up an original Xbox or talk about used original Xboxes or anything related to that. And just not only that, but like getting that word out, there's actually been legitimate rare content that people have been looking for that's been found on it. I just wasn't expecting it to be as spread as it was, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's great to see how widespread that is and like how many people are just being like, hey, have you run XCAT on that? Just like on social media. They'll see a photo of an Xbox and be like, have you run it?
And I'm like, please, people be annoying about it, please.
Yes, it's wonderful. And I tried to be as like thankful as possible in the messaging that shows on screen when you run it.
Yes.
Like there's a big blurb about like helping Xbox preservation and finding long lost content. Do your part. It's like old school like war propaganda almost. And all of this came about because our mutual friend Harcroft has been for years and years been the one beating the drum of Xbox content preservation, like around DLC and like map packs and song packs and new rosters and stuff, trying to make sure they're not lost to time. And originally, I don't exactly remember why he started this, but he's been the one driving that for years and years, trying to catalog it all, find everything that's missing, because the Xbox was, correct me if I'm wrong here, it was the first console to have DLC in this sense.
Yeah,
so,
I want to say it's probably a toss-up between, like, who you're talking to, it's probably a toss-up between, like, that and the Dreamcast.
Ah, yes. See, I've never had a Dreamcast, so I wouldn't be aware
but
of that
and even then, it was very minor. It was something on the VMU, and it was like one, maybe two games that had DLC on the Dreamcast.
Yes, the PS2 also had it, but I think it was one or two games because you needed the hard drive and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But because it was so early in DLC being a thing, there was no real here's how it's done. There was no industry standard.
Yeah.
So as a result, it was the Wild West in terms of how individual game developers and publishers implemented their stuff. Because, yes, you could push your content out Xbox Live. You could install stuff from disks the same way and then have them both recognized. But there was no standardized way in managing the updates to them, how your game should handle it. All of that came into effect on the 360 because Microsoft saw all the mistakes that everybody made and learned from it.
Yeah.
But as a result, there's a lot of stuff that's just an unknown of we don't know if that game had DLC. Maybe it was region specific. Maybe it was only in Japan. Maybe it was only in Asia. We have no idea because it's been so long and things have been lost.
Right.
So in Harcraft's talking to me over the years and explaining his frustrations with this, I eventually said, you know what? I think I can solve your problem. We can make a tool that you run on your console that will just scan through your hard drive and then compare it with a list on a server and say, hey, you've got some missing stuff, send it over. So that's, in the end, that's what XCAT is. You run it, it gives its disclaimer of, hey, this is going to go and dig through your Xbox's hard drive. If there's something on there you don't want us to have, exit now. Otherwise, hit A to continue. And then it'll go and index your drive contents. It'll hash them all. As in, for those that don't know, what I mean by hashing here is creating a unique string of letters that represent the contents of a file.
Yes.
You change one bit in the file, that string will change. So it's a really easy way to say, here's what that file is. These letters represent it. So what XCAT will do is it'll scan through all the files on your drive, and it will hash them all, and it'll send those lists of hashes to the server. And the server will reply back with a list of hashes for files it wants to be uploaded. Mm-hmm. Your Xbox then sends those files over. Once everything you have locally has been sent that the server didn't already have, you get a nice congratulations message. Thank you for your service. And there we go. But the genius here of how all of this works is actually all of those files, because it's all based on hashes, they are deduplicated globally. So if you have a file on your Xbox that gets hashed and compared with the server, and it already has it, it doesn't ask for that file. Mm-hmm. And it also does this in chunks. So if you have a big file, like a game's got a really big DLC or a roster update or something, it will do a rehash in small pieces and tells the server about the pieces. That way, if two people have the file, one person's uploading, then they quit XCAT and run off into the sunset, never to be seen again. Parts of that was already sent. Somebody else can resume that upload.
That's
and carry on.
That's cool.
And because it's all based on hashes like that, as more and more people run it, less stuff is actually being uploaded. Mm-hmm. The entire backend right now is only about 300 gigs worth of files from everyone that's run it.
Right.
Because we're whittling down in terms of the number of unique things out there. And tied into XCAT's backend, there's a Discord and a secret channel that Harcraft sits in and gets notifications when new DLC files get uploaded. Something unique has come in. Light the fires.
I'd say that's pretty accurate.
That's effect. It literally does an at everyone in that channel. Mm-hmm. It works great. So some mornings I'll get up, look at my phone, see 20 notifications. I'll go and check that channel, and Harcraft's sitting there going, "Oh my God, we found such and such. That's been missing for 15 years. We've got it." And then he'll go and then he'll go announce it on social media, and he'll hand out the file to other people to preserve because we found it.
Yep.
Something that was missing for all that time and we thought we'd never see again.
And I want to say real quick, one of the best stories that has come from it is there was I want to say it was a poker game, which I can't remember the name of, and it came out buggy. So in order to even play it online, you had to have the latest title update for it. And this has kind of been lost to time. So nobody had this title update. It couldn't get added to Insignia because even if it was added, it was going to be inherently broken and not work. And then there was one person, to my recollection, there was somebody who ended up buying an original Xbox because they wanted to case mod it and everything. And it was super banged up, like it had holes in it. And it was like $10. And they just said, yeah, sure, I paid $10 for it. I'll bring it home. I'll run XCAT. And that busted up Xbox had that title update that they had been looking for so long.
Yep. It's awesome, the stories that have come through for things like that.
Yeah.
And some of the Japanese content is particularly hard to find because the Xbox wasn't very popular in Japan.
No,
but there
not
was
at all.
also a lot of Japanese exclusives. And there's a similar situation where you'll get a game where it's broken out of the gate, it got a title update, or it had some DLC that's long since lost, but like we've heard mythical things about it. There's now a guy involved with Harcroft and a couple other people who buys lots of consoles in Japan, and he's physically there. And he will buy these busted consoles. He'll buy them by the pallet sometimes, run XCAT on them all, and then send them to e-waste because they're all smashed up and busted.
Yeah.
But he's found so many missing things doing that. It's wonderful.
That's awesome.
Then there's a couple other people where they're doing the same thing in various countries, but they're imaging the drives and then sending them over to somebody else who puts them on a drive and runs XCAT on it.
Right.
There's continued efforts going on, and I myself am working on another XCAT update because there's some nasty bugs that should get fixed. That I've already fixed and need to get out there into the world.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so it's a fun thing. And next up, once the Xbox version has run its course, I'm gonna do XCAT for Xbox 360.
Please let me know. Please let me know when you do that.
360 is in a similar situation where some stuff has been lost, things that were delisted from the store and weren't recorded by the archivists that are already out there, who I won't name. They're doing very good work, but they don't want to be named.
Sure.
But most of the 360 library has been stored away safely so it doesn't get forgotten, but there's still some missing bits.
Of course.
But one of the fun things for XCAT is the way it's been written. It doesn't just look at the T-Data DLC on your Xbox. It looks at almost everything on the hard drive. And by almost everything, I mean, like, there's exclusions. Like, it's not looking at your soundtracks. I don't need 400 copies of In the End and a whole bunch of biscuit albums.
Probably not
I don't need your music.
I
That's
figure
fine.
probably. Well, I'm not sure if, or probably not like a movies folder for like XBMC or something.
Oh, yes. Okay. So
Oh.
that's a particularly annoying problem, is that XCAT will... There's certain areas of the hard drive it won't touch. Like, for example, it's not going to touch the dev kit folder. So
Okay.
if you've got a dev kit that you're running it on, it's not going to go and take your prototype builds from a million years ago.
Okay.
We don't want to annoy people and piss people off doing that kind of stuff. So that is like hard-coded into it. You don't look in this path. That kind of thing. It's got a few other files on the hard drive that it will like hard-coded in the software ignore, like Shadow C files. I don't need your softmod dashboard. You can keep that file, thanks. I don't need a 500 meg bin file uploaded to the server. But there's also like wildcard checking against files of things that we don't want. Like your .z64, I don't need your N64 ROMs.
Sure.
Your MKV files, don't want them. Your MP4s, also don't want them. Your JPEGs, that's tricky because some games did use JPEGs. So we need to look at what folder they're in. If XBMC is in the path, don't want it.
Yeah.
Leave it alone. But we've specifically excluded media files in XBMC because we want old XBMC builds. Because we're not just going to find lost DLC. We're going to find lost homebrew.
Yeah, you want the builds, but like you don't want these 700 megabyte rips of like pirated movies or like I don't know somebody's anime collection that's in I don't know 220p or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah, a copy of Evangelion came through last month that was like 144p. I don't need that, thanks.
Yeah, and it's like I don't even need that, but it's like how could you live this way? Why did you watch it this way? Answer: that's what we had.
Exactly, yes. So, another thing that's fun there is it is also looking at your games folder and your apps folder to find lost homebrew, but also game mods and map packs and stuff like that, like community ones that are lost. Because there's been a couple like Halo 2 map packs out there that were famous back in the day, but no one can find them anymore. So XCAT at this point, it only has alerting turned on for DLC stuff that's new, but it's just been slurping up the contents of games folders this whole time. It's got a giant 4 million file block list of things that it's not going to take. Like I loaded all of the Xbox game library in there. I pre-hashed everything. It's not going to take a standard game file,
Okay.
but it'll take modified ones.
Sure. So if
So
there's
if
like a
you've
map
got
mod
patch
or something.
XBE, we'll grab that. Exactly, map mods, it's going to grab those. And in the back end, the path that it came from on a hard drive is stored.
Okay.
along with the entire contents that were seen on that Xbox.
Got it.
So you can just go browse the file system of a console that has run XCAT and see which files are missing, which ones we did get from that run, and you can reconstruct, like, hey, look, there was a map pack. Okay, we need the XBE, we need the fonts for that, we need the map file. Hey, look, the game runs, and it's back.
Cool.
And we can hand that off to the community, and somebody can go and properly redistribute that, and people can enjoy it again. Something that was lost and has now been found.
That's awesome. I do have, years ago, I ended up buying a pre-modded Xbox on eBay that was in, I got it for the chip that was in there, but it was in pretty sorry shape, and it was just so disappointing to the point where I kind of just put it back in the shipping box, and it's in my storage area. I need to pull that Xbox out, not just to work on it, but I actually need to run XCAT on it, because it's a hard-modded system. It has, like, it's pretty much like a hard modded system from like 2004, 2005, isn't it? Has like a 200 or 300 gigabyte hard drive. I think it's running Evolution X. It has tons of custom skins and everything, and it has a bunch of stuff on the hard drive. And that's why I'm just like, I think this is my first time bringing it up to you, but I'm like, one of these days, I need to pull it out of storage. I'm just going to get the latest XCAT build, FTP it over, run it, and just let it do its thing.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of Evox skins, that's something I should release at some point, is an Evox skin pack. Just call it the XCAT Evox skins, because oh my goodness, there's so many of them, and some of them are so cheesy and so early 2000s.
Yeah, it was
like, yes, your Evox skin with Britney Spears as the background in a bikini. Of course. Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it was like the ones I looked through. It was a lot of like models and all that stuff. So
yes, yeah,
yeah, because that's just what people did.
Yep, that was the style back then.
Yeah.
Onion on the belt and everything. Yep.
Well, cool. No, it's been incredibly awesome project. I've loved seeing the updates on it. Thank you for your work on that, and it's made me happy to see it there, like just see it like spread all over the place. So again, just please keep me in the loop for when the 360 variant is in development and releasing.
Yes, I'll be quite vocal about that, as I will need other people's help, because I'm not the most familiar with the 360's internals.
Sure.
But I know some people that are. So that one will be more of a group effort.
Yeah, I can't...
XCAT was mainly a solo thing.
Yeah.
There's been a couple other people with input, but mostly my thing.
Right on.
It's been a fun one. It's not done yet. There's still more changes to be made and improvements to be had. One of the things I'm working on right now is what I've been calling the XCAT stub loader, which is a tiny XBE. It's only a 0.5 meg, unlike XCAT, which is like 3.5. The idea being that if the stub loader is what gets distributed, and when you start it up, it goes and downloads the latest version of XCAT onto your hard drive as a game save, and then launches it. The idea being that I don't have to have an updater inside XCAT. It does have one, but it's a bit jank. Mm-hmm. And you run that XBE, you're always going to get the latest.
That's actually pretty awesome. I know you had shown that to me, and you explained it, and I thought it was cool. And then I'm just gonna be honest with you. Funny enough, I think it was just because I was tired. I didn't fully make the connection till today, and I was like, because at first I was like, oh, okay, yeah, it always pulls the latest build. That's awesome. And I was like, wait a minute, that's not going to be an issue, because to run XCAT properly, you have to be connected online to begin with. Derp.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. And something I got working, I think it was last night, or the night before, quite often you'll run into situations where people have broken network config on their Xbox and they don't know about it.
Yeah.
Or they've set up Insignia and their internet access doesn't quite work properly because of the way the DNS is done. Mm-hmm. I got a thing working last night where the stub loader will start up. It'll try to contact the server. It will fail. It will then deinitialize the network stack, reset it to DHCP, but at first, it will save your existing settings off to the side. It'll reset to DHCP. It'll reinitialize. Then it'll set the old settings back. But because it's already initialized, they don't take effect. And then it will try to contact the internet. And if that works, great. Off we go. If that doesn't work, it'll tell you, hey, your internet config is messed up. Please fix that and run again. But I can do a quick shell game of config settings to get it working. And then I'll bolt the same new stuff onto XCAT, and there we go. You've got the no-effort configuration for networking. Just run the XBE.
That's cool.
But the other reason for this XBE is so that it can be included in soft mod endgame installers.
Yes.
So for those that don't know and haven't watched Mr. Mario's wonderful video on it, Endgame is a new softmod exploit for the Xbox that doesn't require a game. It's just a memory card or a USB stick. You plug it in, you go to the dash, you go to the memory settings, it'll glitch out and launch the exploit. Awesome. Works on everything. But if you're using an official memory card, you're limited to 8 megs. And the exploit itself takes a meg or 2. XCAT will be another 3. That doesn't give you much space on there. So with the stub loader, that's under 500K. That leaves you lots of room for activities.
Yeah, so much room.
Yep. But the tricky bit with Endgame, and I'm going to toot my own horn here again, tricky bit with Endgame, it will launch a single XBE. And the way it does that is it copies it from the memory card to the hard drive, then starts it. And it only copies that one file.
Yeah.
So you're very limited in what you can do. So one of the initial things that was out there with Endgame support was the Insignia setup assistant. So
Yes.
you didn't have to have a modded console. You put this memory stick in, off you go, you're good. But that's one XBE. So I wrote a tool called the Packed XBE Loader, where what you do with it is, and you need the Xbox development environment because I don't know the newer stuff. I know the old school methods.
Yeah.
You put all your soft mod, all whatever package you want to make, and you give it a default XBE, you put it in a certain folder, and you build this project. It zips it up, it puts it inside an XBE that it spits out, and that's what you put in your endgame loader. You get one big fat XBE that when it launches, unzips into the hard drive, and then launches your payload. So you could put a dashboard in there. You could have XBMC on a memory card that can run on an unmodded console. You can do whatever you want. So Harcroft is putting together a tool called Skeleton Key that he plans to give out at game conventions, free USB sticks with it on it.
Heck yeah.
That will have a mod pack that launches via in-game and uses my packed loader. And it'll have XCAT in there as one of the menu options. Nice and easy.
That's awesome.
Well, just a Swiss Army knife, multiple tool, plug it into anything, like a skeleton key, and it'll let you in.
Yeah, I've seen him working on that. It's been really awesome to see that as well, too. I love it.
Yep, he's getting ready to release it. He's pretty much just waiting on me to finish the stub loader, then it's good to go.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing everything that comes of this. So it'll be neat overall. I know you had told me a little bit about. I feel like you told me a bit about that before, like when you were kind of like packing it all together, and you said you were essentially having to. How'd I put it? It was funny. You were essentially having to like jailbreak the like the development, like the dev suite on there.
Yes. Yeah, that's one fun thing for original Xbox. The way hard drive access works, games are very restricted in which sections they can see of the hard disk. Like, they can't just go and browse the entire drive. They can only see their DLC folder and game saves folder and a cache drive for where they can store temporary files. One of the things almost all Xbox Homebrew does is it jailbreaks out of those restrictions by unmounting the hard drive and remounting it at the actual, like, root folders of everything. So
yeah,
that's the only real, like, quote, jailbreak that happens that you have to do with the SDK is to get real hard drive access. You have to do that.
Got it.
Yep. And that's something that's been floating around out there for a while. It was initially, my understanding, a pretty secret thing in the Xbox scene on how to do that. And it was sort of a hush-hush, here's how you go and do this thing. Kept between a lot of homebrew developers, but it's pretty open these days. If you Google for undocumented.h, you will find it.
Okay. All right.
That is the secret file that gets pulled into every homebrew these days, and it's not a secret whatsoever. It's been out there on the internet for 15 years. But that's the key.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And parts of that are in Packed XBE Loader, and it says at the top of, like, this is a cut down version of so-and-so, needs to be here. Here's why. Here's what it does. Yeah. Fun stuff.
Yeah, I'm actually, I literally just when you said that kind of piqued my interest, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm seeing references of that now. Hint to anybody, if you are going to be looking that up, just add Xbox to your search string.
Yeah, that'll help. Yep.
Yes, yeah, because there's many other undocumented.h files out there which are not Xbox related.
Yes. What's also interesting is that a lot of it applies to the 360 as well.
I do see.
And if you do some Googling, you'll see a 360 version of it.
Very first hit I have of it, yeah, it's Amiga 360.
And if you look at Amiga 360, my understanding is that's made by no one else other than Mr. Modern Vintage Gamer.
Yeah, right there. GitHub.com/Lantis/Amiga 360. Yeah, that was the original one at least.
Yep, there it is.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, someone else ended up mirroring it 12 years ago.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of 360 stuff, the older stuff, has just been lost too, because the 360 scene had some early homebrew there with Zell, before
Yes.
there was like the modded dashboards and all that jazz, and a lot of that's just lost now.
Yeah.
So hopefully we find some of it again. But I suspect we won't find a lot of it, because a lot of that you had to launch from USB sticks. And the same thing with like Xbox 360 Linux. It was launched from USB. Most of the people wouldn't have it on their hard drive. And the 360 with removable drives, that's probably all long gone.
Right. Right.
So there's going to be a lot of lost homebrew on the 360 side of things.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
On the
So-
Xbox, a lot more of that will have stuck around because the hard drive's built in. It's not going to get taken out and misplaced or donated or thrown out or anything like that.
All right. Well, that's even more reason for XCAT 360, right?
Yep.
There we go.
And then I was thinking, what other consoles would that make sense for? Maybe PS2? Probably not, since that would be mostly game
the fun
saves.
thing is that's even where my mind jumped to as well. I was like PS2, but maybe.
There's not really
yeah.
much there, and anything that was DLC has either already been backed up by the PlayStation fanatics in the scene, or never existed in the first place.
I mean, I'm thinking maybe like I don't know if there's maybe some odd like Final Fantasy 11 type thing that wasn't like backed up or known about. I'm not sure.
Considering how rabid that fan base is, I really doubt it.
Yeah.
But who knows? It's worth looking into.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
interesting things out there.
Yeah. Well, CrunchBite, I am wanting to kind of start winding this down here, but one of the last things I do kind of ask and talk about, and you did say, you do more enabling of other people to play games as opposed to you playing games, but for the time that you do have when you're, sitting down with your beer and such, what games are you currently playing?
Currently, I've been playing through Stardew Valley
Okay, all right.
on Switch, or Breath of the Wild on Wii U, of all things.
This is a thing that people don't really think about until you tell them to think about it. Breath of the Wild on the Switch was just a port of the Wii U version.
Yep, it's a port.
Yeah, and I think it's on parity now, but when it first came out, the Wii U version actually performed better.
Yes, you'll get the classic frame rate drops when you go near the Deku tree.
Yep.
I think it is actually still a little bit better on the Wii U. But
I'm
you'd be
not-
sitting there counting frames to try to figure it out.
I'm not surprised at all.
It's a good console. People should give it a try. I've got 2 of them.
Yeah.
That's another thing I didn't mention. For XLink stuff, I'm doing the majority of game testing, and like every time we're coming out with a new release, I have to do regression testing, make sure we haven't broken GameCube, that kind of stuff. But that means I've got 2 of every console.
Okay.
And usually I'm not playing on those consoles most of the time. They're just my test setup. So I've got one desk with like 20 something consoles lined up on it that are all plugged into the network and ready to go.
Yep.
Because 14 consoles and I need 2 of everything. The only ones I don't have are PlayStation 5 and Series X.
Yeah.
I've got everything else.
Yeah, 'cause
And,
it's like, oh, okay, like
that
the
desk
1
is
to 3
boring.
games on there, it's fine.
Yeah. Or like Mario Kart Wii, I'm not testing that. I don't care. I'm going to go test GameCube and make sure it still works. Because guess what? All the Nintendo consoles except the Switch work the same way network-wise. Yep. It's a very odd thing at times.
Yeah.
And childhood me would just be amazed. It's like, oh my God, you've got this many consoles? How many games? How many do you play? Well, about that. Life is busy. And, well... to be young again and be unburdened and have all the gaming time I would want.
There are sometimes I do kind of run those like imaginary conversations through my head. It's like, hey, if I talk to like my kid self, how would that be? And like, it's one of the things is just like, actually with like the PSP, for example, because I absolutely love the PSP. Like it did a lot for me getting into modding, learning, and all this fun stuff here. But I remember like I only had one growing up, and I was like, I'd really like a second one here, just one to like mess around with, and then my main one. And like I'd like to ideally have like 3. I'd like my main one I'm playing on. I want one to mess around with. I want one just on 1.5 just to have that there. And now it's like I have like 10 plus of them at this point, and I'd be like, well, I don't really play them as much. They kind of sit there. Oh, there's this battery thing too, they blow up, so you're gonna have to like be careful with that. But look at this here, we've got like this sliding one, the PSP Go, and oh hey, here's this one that came out of Russia, this PSP Streets that you've probably never heard of.
Yep, Sony really like to have different variants of things, that's for sure. Yeah, and that's the same thing here. Like, sure, it's mostly test hardware, but I'm sitting here with 2 PS Vitas, 2 PSTDs, 3 PSPs, one of which is on official firmware, the others are all modded.
Sure.
Like, there's just so much involved in testing this stuff, and that's like my main hobby is XLink. It's the thing that's kept me going for many years in terms of learning new things, new ways to do stuff. Like, in terms of the development side of it, it's a full software engineering kind of setup. Like, we've got our own self-hosted Git. We've got the continuous integration pipeline that pumps out the builds, automatically signs them, uploads them to the server. The beta testers can go use them. We've got the whole shebang.
Beautiful.
And none of that's necessary, but it's where I learn.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's how I've learned all these skills that have turned into a career using those tools.
There we go. Yeah. Like it's in my professional life, there has been at least 2 times I can think of where I have brought up stuff that harken back to original Xbox modding and trying to learn networking and all that stuff on there. So, and then people like, even like one little thing, for example, like one of my previous jobs I had, like, I got into a call with someone and, he's like, nothing bad, showing me like the basics of like SFTP and how to connect and all that stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, yep. And he's like, do you have any questions? I'm like, no, not, I know how to do all this. And he was kind of weirded out because he's like, wait, like, how?
Why do you know this?
He's like, because like this is typically a role like nobody knows SFTP or FTP going into it, and then they learn it there. So he was just so weirded out that I knew, and he was even like, I mean, if you don't mind me asking, like, you don't have to answer it, but like, how do you know this stuff? And I was like, oh, dude, I was modding up systems and like I had to FTP to them. I had to learn this stuff. So it took me a while. Like that's a beautiful thing. Now I can teach someone how to FTP to a system in like 2 minutes. Dude, it took me months to get it to successfully work on my original Xbox. And I'm pretty sure I gave up on it like at least once or twice as well too. I know I did. Not pretty sure. I know I did. So come a long way with that.
And I'm not surprised too. Like back then, FTP clients were so janky.
Yeah.
These days, they're a lot easier to use. Like you can use like WinSCP to do it, and it's got all the proper settings as the defaults.
Mm-hmm.
But like back in the day, with really old versions of like FileZilla or FlashFXP, the default settings were atrocious.
Yeah.
And just didn't work correctly with your Xbox. So you had to go and do things in the right way. Like one of the things that's a pinned post in the Xbox Homebrew Discord is me ranting about people, you must use binary mode on FTP or it's going to break your game files. And it's just a series of pins of screenshots of go turn on this setting, and then this one, and this one, and then it'll work. I'm not explaining again why you have to do this. Just go do it. Stop asking questions. It will solve your problems.
Do you remember the need for a crossover cable?
Yes, I still have several of them.
Yep. The
Xbox's network chipset does not do auto MDIX.
No. Although, I mean, you hook it up to, your switch or your router or whatever, and then it automatically does all that stuff, so that's fine.
Exactly,
but like
those ones support it.
I remember explicitly having to go out and try and buy a crossover cable, and then even so, when I started building my own cables, I was doing them as crossovers, and one of my friends was like, why don't you just do straight through? The crossover's harder to do. I'm like, because I still work with these older systems, and yes, you know what, just let me do my Xbox thing, okay? And they work the same anyways. You hook them up into your network, modern network now, straight through crossover, it's all going to work the same.
Exactly. It'll go, oh, hey, look, the other connection. Let me uncross that for you. It doesn't care, the modern stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, which, thank goodness for that, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, it sounds like you've got Stardew Valley and testing is what you're playing.
Yep. Every so often I'll go and find something new that has been missed in the testing. Actually, a few months ago, somebody reported a PS3 game we were missing. That was a surprise.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah. Not often we get a new game on an older console.
Yeah.
But that's one of those other tricky things, is I know there are hundreds of games that we've missed in other languages and other regions.
Yep.
For PS3, there's got to be stuff out there. For PSP, I'm sure there's probably another 100 games that we're missing.
Mm-hmm.
And like one of the things I've been trying to do with like Switch is like test Japanese titles. But let me tell you, not knowing Japanese makes it really hard to test Japanese games.
Yeah, and then even so, I mean, you can bust out your phone and use Google Translate and take the photos and all that, but even that's not the best.
No, yeah, that's a tricky one, and I've had to do that several times, and it does work. But listen, if you're trying to play a JRPG and get through enough gameplay that it lets you unlock menus to do multiplayer, it's not happening. I'm sorry.
Nope.
Japanese players, you'll have to find those ones on your own and tell me about them, because unfortunately I can't read it.
We'll have to get more boots on the ground in Japan and have more people who are like, looking for the systems and all that, but maybe just helping out with the games as well too.
Yes. Oh, speaking of which, I've got a nitpick with Nintendo on this one.
Ooh, okay.
Your website where you're listing multiplayer support and local wireless, could you maybe make sure it's correct? About half your listings are wrong. It's like the PS3 back of the game cases all over again, where they didn't make a distinction between online play and LAN play on the network players, as they would call it. So it's just a complete toss-up. And then there's also various Xbox and Xbox 360 games where the case is wrong. They'll list system link, but it doesn't actually have it, or the game has it, but the case doesn't list it.
Really?
Guys. Yeah, there were 4 or 5 of them like that.
Oh, that's disappointing, actually. Yeah,
because I was just misprints on the case.
Okay, because I was looking through some games, like when my friend and I, we were looking to play some games together. I was like looking through some of my collection. I was like, oh, this one doesn't have, this one doesn't have, oh, this one does have System Link. Okay.
Well, good news. You can go and check the XLink's wiki.
Yes.
What's also interesting about that is it is by far the largest list of games that have LAN support that have been verified out there on the internet.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And what's also really frustrating when I'm trying to find new games to test, like mainly on like Switch and stuff like that, so many websites are wrong. Like the website Co-Optimus, just delete your section about network stuff at this point. Just delist that, please. You are wrong 90% of the time.
All right, shots fired.
It's frustrating dealing with those kind of lists. And on Switch, I think I found mostly everything except for like brand new stuff.
Yeah.
221 titles is pretty darn good.
That is.
Especially 25 that are LAN.
Yeah.
And usually games don't advertise that they have LAN support, so it's a really tricky one.
Excuse me.
And I know we're getting long in the time here. One of the things that's really interesting that came out recently was Quake 2.
Yeah.
For Switch, Xbox Series, and I think it came out in PS4 as well. That actually works cross-play between all of those consoles on LAN and against the original PC version.
That's actually incredibly impressive. And they did not have to do that, but they went out of their way to do it because they loved it so much.
Exactly, because it was so important to the culture of the game back then.
Yes.
LAN play.
Yes.
So they brought it forward to the modern stuff. You can play if you have the same version of the game, and I think they've only ever put out one update on it. As long as you got that same version, you got a Switch, you got a PS4, guess what, guys? We're playing.
That's beautiful. I didn't know about that, so I'm happy to learn that.
And it can play against PC too.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
And it can do like 30 players in a match. It's great.
That's awesome.
Now, you can't do the cross-play through XLink. The way it's all implemented network-wise, the consoles are kept apart by what type they are.
Sure.
So, like, Microsoft consoles are handled a certain way, Nintendo's handled a certain way, Sony's a certain way, and they can't talk to each other.
Got it.
That's something I might try to add in the future, maybe. Depends on how complicated it is, but there's so few games that let cross-play happen like that I probably won't end up doing it.
Right.
So you'll have to play those in person. Sorry, people.
I guess an excuse to see everyone, bring your big rig and all that stuff.
You'll have to play them in person as they were intended.
As they were intended, damn it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're going to do it right. But it's amazing that they made it they did the cross-play against the original versions.
Mm-hmm. No, that is incredibly impressive. I did not know about that until now. So thank you for teaching me.
Yeah. Something that I would really like to see come to consoles, it'll never happen, is like StarCraft Brood War. Just do a release of that for the modern consoles and be like, keyboard and mouse required. Plug them in by USB. Go play it, boys. Like, it'd be great.
Yeah, I think one of the things with I want to say it was the original StarCraft. One of the things that surprised me, which I never would have thought of, it's not even like LAN. Well, I guess technically LAN related. One of my friends back in the day who was like really obsessed with StarCraft, he let me know like 2 things. He said one, when like professional players play, they turned their graphic settings all the way down because like less resources, and also it was easier for them to see things, funny enough. But he also said like before a match, what they'll do is, because like every little frame counts, they will load up a map that it will just automatically load in every single sprite and cycle through every single animation. So that way when it's done, they're all cached. So when it's actually like literally game time, there's nothing left to cache in the system.
They're in the optimal conditions.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes. And that's just stuff I would have never thought of, but I'm like, okay, that's incredibly smart. That's awesome.
And speaking of turning down the settings, that reminds me of an old method of cheating, and I think it was CS:GO, where you'd go out and buy like the worst graphics card you could possibly get that would run the current version of DirectX, and then you would turn the settings all the way down because it would disable bushes and smoke.
Okay. Okay.
So you could see everyone on the map in the distance.
So-
because all of the fog would be gone, you could see through all the bushes. Everyone's sticking out like a sore thumb.
That's funny. Not quite wall hacks, but like half wall hacks.
Yeah, yeah. Once that came out, that's what some people were doing to, quote, cheat. Valve patched the game so that if there's supposed to be smoke that's like supposed to be opaque, it would actually just opaque your entire vision.
Okay. All right. So that was their way of saying, update your damn graphics card. We know what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah. Enough of these lazy cheats.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think they also like aggressively changed the fade out of players in the distance,
That's
depending
funny.
on your graphics settings. So you couldn't do that kind of thing.
That's funny. I didn't know about that.
So many silly ways to cheat.
Yeah. I was going to say on the games being played, because I can go on this quick. So I end up finishing, what is it? I know it's kind of sacrilegious, but the whole, like, you know how Rockstar murdered, like, the 3D Grand Theft Auto games, the Definitive Edition, or, like, the Definitive Trilogy? Yeah, I went back and I replayed Grand Theft Auto 3, because there was, a few months ago, there was an update that came out. And I was like, you know, I want to see how much they updated, like, how big of a difference they made. Also, I was traveling, too, so I started Grand Theft Auto 3, and this is how I am, right, because it's my favorite game. It's one of those things I started it, and then I accidentally finished the second island. So, that's how it went. It is better. There's still glitches. There's still issues. I could see the issues of things that are going on there, but it is in a better state. Although I was playing it on Switch, so kind of on purpose and also out of convenience, I was playing the worst version because I wanted to kind of see how that stacked up. And what was the issue I was running into? No, the frame pacing still never got fixed though. So you still kind of have this like little bit of like uncomfortable judder like every few seconds.
Oh.
Yeah.
At least they went back and fixed a bunch of the really glaring issues. Like there was that issue with rain that looked completely out of place. The atmosphere was just totally wrong.
Yeah, I remember I talked with Badger Goodger, I believe, when that came out, and it was just like, it wasn't that the devs even did a bad job. They did what they could, but it was simply incomplete games. That was it. They bit off way more than they could chew for the time limit, and it was pushed out, and it was just, it felt like you were playing incomplete beta builds of games, because that's pretty much what happened. They were just, retail signed was the only difference.
That's rough.
Yeah.
Speaking of replaying older games like this, one of the ones I want to revisit is Shadow of the Colossus on PS2.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah.
And the reason for that, and like I've played the PS3 remaster a little bit. I played the PS4 remaster, which looks amazing.
Beautiful.
But they don't have the same atmosphere as the original did.
Well,
and especially the original played on a CRT.
The original, I mean, it was designed for the system. It was just lonely. It was isolating. And then even the performance on it actually still works in its favor, because, I mean, even that's a part of it, too. It doesn't play it like a beautiful 60 frames per second. Yeah,
it's a very different feel to it. And I've just last year, I got a Sony PVM. So I'm very eager to go and replay a whole bunch of games on that, because they just, when you're playing on the screen that something was designed for, you're playing it in the conditions that it's going to be best at.
Yep.
It's what it was made for. That's how it was intended to be. Like a
Yep.
lot of older games, like the hardware wasn't capable of doing anti-aliasing and things like that. The screen took care of that.
Yep. So,
And because of the geometry physically of the quote pixels on the TV, that's what they designed for. So when you're going and playing like a NES game in an emulator and you're seeing all these pixels, that's not how it was.
Yep.
Everything was smoothed, everything was rounded, everything was shaded differently.
yeah, I think...
The famous example is, sorry to cut you off there, the famous example was, I think it was Castlevania. I don't remember what character was on screen because I've never played Castlevania, but there was a photo of a CRT showing the game. Wonderful shadowing on the guy's face. The eyes just looked alive.
It was
And then
Alucard.
you
I
see
know what you're
the-
talking about. It was the image of Alucard
Yes.
talking, yeah.
Yes, and then you see the pixelated direct from the frame buffer version, and it looks terrible.
I
It's
think...
a blocky mess.
I think that might not even be NES. I think that might be from Symphony of the Night on PS1. I believe I know what you're talking about, yeah.
It might be. Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Yeah.
So, like, I want to go back and I want to play Shadow of the Colossus on a CRT on the PS2 hardware. I want to see it as it was intended and experience that again.
So the funny thing too is I was actually talking with my girlfriend about it about a week or two ago, because like I said, you know, we had the Wii U, we've been using that for Wii games, and she wanted to play Super Mario Galaxy 2. That was specifically what she wanted to play. She has a lot of good memories with it. And it was funny because like the second time we went back to play it, she was looking, she's like, huh, you know, it looks like this interface and everything, it looks so old, but it's like, she's like, is it my imagination? Like, I don't know. The TV's fine. There's nothing wrong with the TV, but I feel like the game it looked better before, and I almost feel like it was even more vibrant. And so I asked her, I was like, okay, when you were playing it, did you play it on a tube TV or a flat screen like this? And she said she played on a tube TV. And I'm like, okay, first of all, the Wii was not meant for HD at all. It can't do HD. It can at most do 480p, at least in North America. And y'all were definitely not playing it there, so you played it in composite. But because of that, it was built for that specific TV. So if I brought my laptop down, fired it up on an emulator, and just hooked up my HDMI cable to it, it would probably look pretty similar to how you remember it. But just like playing it on here, like it's, you know, nice progressive scan on a flat screen through the Wii U, which does have its issues with VWii output and such, but, you know, mods can fix that a little bit. But I essentially said, like, if I boost, like, you know, through the emulator, it would look cleaner and it would look brighter because it's being upscaled and adjusted and such. But this is not doing any of that there. It's not doing anything. It's just upscaling the actual, like, output resolution, but not the game resolution itself. So that's why it doesn't look as good.
Exactly. And what you're seeing of the game wasn't meant to be pixel perfect.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you describe the Wii U as just a Wii with an HD output, because the Wii U can also do the reverse. You can go and I did this, you can play Breath of the Wild over 480i on a CRT.
Yes, you
from
can.
Your Wii U.
Because it has
it's a very strange experience.
It has that analog output on it. Yes, it does.
Yep.
Yep.
And actually, one of the things that's great with the Wii U, because of that analog output, is you can tell it to do analog audio out while doing HDMI.
Yep. Yep.
So like I'm usually sitting here playing on a projector actually, and this projector for some reason doesn't have audio handling on its HDMI port at all. It's got nothing. So I have to have an HDMI audio extractor, but for the Wii U, I just have the analog cable plugged in and it goes to the stereo receiver.
There you go.
Easy. No fuss. Thanks, Nintendo.
But I think, yeah, it's one of those things like, why can't all the systems be like the Wii U? And it's like, oh, wait, okay, yeah, it didn't do that well in sales. Got it.
Yeah, well, the PS3 also has that.
Yeah,
you can do analog output because it's got the exact same connector that the PS1 and PS2 had. Okay, and it also has HDMI.
But you got to remember the weird thing with the PS3, which I never understood this here, right? You got to remember, the PS3, I can't fathom it. It shipped with composite cables.
Yeah, that's really weird.
The only time it was ever useful that I could think of, like for like a proper scenario, was like years ago. I was visiting one of my best friends, and we ended up going to, I think, a Goodwill, and we found 2 PS1 consoles. Just console only, no cables, and we were starting to like solder and get into like installing like LEDs and mod chips and all that stuff, so we were like doing that together. But we ended up getting them, and we knew that we could hook it up to power. But then we didn't know about the video output, and he's like, wait a minute, the PS3, I have one. I still have the box. And I'm like, it came with the, and we were just both like, yeah, it came with the component. It came with the composite. So we like run to his closet, get the PS3 box out. Of course, the cables had never been used, and we were able to use the PS3 composite cables for a thrift store PS1.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah, and that was perfect right there. But aside from that, I remember like when I got my first PS3, I saw the composite cables and I just laughed. I'm like, why would I ever need these?
It's just a guess, but I'm guessing because they already had all of the manufacturing set up for producing a bajillion of those cables from the PS2.
Sure.
Which, remember, they were still selling until 2013.
Yeah.
You could buy a brand new PS2. So they already had all of the tooling, all the manufacturing, and a huge stock of them. So screw it. Why would we spend more money on other cables when we could just keep slapping these in boxes?
And it must have been a really, really big stock, because I got them with my first PS3, which was a PS3 Slim that I purchased brand new in 2010. It was not a launch unit. It was 4 years after.
And they're still shipping those cables.
And they still were. Yeah, with the slim, not even the fat one. So,
Yep.
yeah.
And this was a console touted as like a Blu-ray player.
Yes.
Yet they're shipping those cables.
That's why it never made sense to me, because the Wii, it didn't have HD, like it didn't have HD out, so that makes sense. The 360, even the original model, it came with the dual type cable. It had composite and component on there. But then the PS3, it's like touted as the HD machine, composite, right out the box, composite. Yeah. Yeah.
But also an HDMI port if you're one of those fancy people who had a TV with HDMI at the time.
That is true. Yeah. But really, you couldn't even give us the option for the component? Like, nah, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the other game I'd played this month, have you heard of... I had not heard of this until there was a comment that was left for me. Have you heard of Thank Goodness You're Here?
No, I haven't. What's it about?
So the best way... I don't want to spoil it, but the best way I can describe it... Do you remember about 25 years ago when, like, and actually, well, yeah, do you remember about 25 years ago, just like some of the odd cartoons that would be on Cartoon Network? Like, it could be, some of them felt like odd stuff of the time,
there
like
was
Ed,
like
Ed, Nettie.
Fever Dream 4 a.m. Cartoons, like
Yes.
who came up with this kind of stuff? Yeah,
Yes.
things were wacky.
Yes, there you go. So hold on to that thought, right? Imagine you're at home, you're sick, you're flipping through the channels, and you see one of those cartoons, except you can control it. That's what Thank Goodness You're Here feels like. And it's fantastic. I love the humor. I love the great stuff that happens in there. It's only about... I would actually recommend it too, because even though I know you don't have too much time for games, I finished it in one sitting. It's like a 2-hour game.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking at some screenshots. Yeah, this looks... It looks like the cartoons of that era. Absolutely.
It's great. It's great. And I think there was even one part, it's funny, because like my girlfriend was like, she's next to me watching it, and she slept for like the first hour. So then she woke up and she's seeing it, and she's like, I'm not super invested. So she's like on her phone kind of looking up, and it just looks like a kid's cartoon, right? And I don't remember what exactly it was, but like there's one line where there's like some characters talking, and one of them was just, he said something like, "Man, that's fucked up." And she just got shocked. She's like, "This is a kid's game, isn't it?" And I'm like, I don't know.
You're like, apparently not.
I don't. Yeah, I guess it's not anymore. Yeah. So that's one.
Speaking of game recommendations, I've got a couple for you actually.
Ooh, okay. Let me know.
If you're looking for something nice and short and relaxing, there's a game called A Short Hike.
I've played it. I know exactly what you're talking about. I've played through it.
It's lovely.
Yep.
And another one, very much not a short game, very much not relaxing, is Tunic.
Tunic.
Have you heard of it?
I've heard of it. I don't know much about it.
It plays like the old Zelda games.
Oh, yeah, the one with the fox.
It's very... Yes, the little fox guy who's wearing a green tunic, like a certain Nintendo character.
And guess what? It's even on Switch.
Yes, it's on the Switch and PS4 and PC and all that jazz.
Yep.
But you wake up effectively with amnesia on the coast with your sword and your green tunic, very much like A Link to the Past. Sorry, not A Link to the Past. What's the one? Link's Awakening.
Yeah.
It's very much the same intro as Link's Awakening, and it plays like a Zelda game.
Okay.
And it's very clearly made by Zelda fans. It's got the same vibe to it, except the plot's a little darker than anything Nintendo would do.
Okay.
I've seen the game described as if Zelda games could still be surprising.
Okay. I haven't
anybody listening to this, if you are interested in playing it, don't look up anything about it on the internet. Anything you see about plot is a spoiler. Go into it cold.
Okay.
Let yourself be surprised. Be that kid again, amazed at something happening in a game. Go in cold, trust me. It's like when you've got that new movie coming up. You see 3 seconds of the trailer. You've decided, I'm going to watch that, and you don't look at anything until you go to the theater.
Dude, one of the best movie watching experiences I ever had was when my friends dragged me to Chronicle. I went in there, all I knew was the film was called Chronicle, and that it was by MTV. Those are the only two things I knew, and I was like, I bet this is going to be mid. And then it ended up being one of...
man.
Honestly, that is my... I actually heard some people talking about it today, funny enough, but that is probably my favorite superhero type movie, because it's just so realistic. Like, what if just I think it's three. What if like three random high schoolers, some weird incident happens to them, and all of a sudden they have superpowers? Like and on top of that, I had no idea. I absolutely love found footage films, and the entire film is like that. Yeah. So that was one of the best movie watching experiences I had going into that completely blind. Like I was expecting it to be cringe, and I came out just mind blown.
Yeah, going into that blind would be wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So CrunchBite, let's go ahead and wrap this up here, because it's getting late for me. It's been a pleasure talking with you, dude. It's been a really fun conversation. Got to learn a lot. Got to be entertained here. It's been a good time overall.
I'm glad you had me. It's been fun.
I did, I actually want to tell you a thank you as well, too, not only for what you do for XLink Kai, tunneling services and all that stuff, but I'll say, like, you've been wanting to, you said you've just been wanting to, enable people to play online like that and such. And I'll say this, when my friend and I, when we've been playing Gears of War together through, tunneling and all that stuff, it's been some of the best fun I've had online in a while. So if you're enabling, if you are there enabling and making experiences like that happen worldwide, thank you for that.
Well, you're welcome. I'm glad you're having fun there. And believe it or not, I'm involved with the link as well now.
Okay. That makes me happy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Both sides of the 360 scene.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yep. It's wonderful to just have people out there having fun.
Yeah.
Go enjoy some free services. Have fun playing a game. Enjoy it.
Yes. Yeah.
And don't be bothered of someone trying to get money out of you. Please just have fun.
Yes. Yeah, and I think too, I'm just like, it doesn't even matter what you use, Xbox Connect is down, but whether it's like Link or XLink Kai, or if you're just going on to Xbox Live or something, it doesn't matter what you're doing as long as you're playing. And you can use all the services together. You don't just have to stay on one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And actually, that's a kind of an interesting point. Actually, no, never mind. That doesn't work. I was going to say you could cross-play between X-Link and Link, but no, you can't actually.
Yeah, correct.
The way the networking works inside Link
Yep.
stays local within the console. It doesn't bleed out onto the network.
Yep. Because I know that has impacted people who set up their consoles for Link, and then they want to play on XLink Kai, and they can't.
Yes, you have to go inside your settings and turn off Nova and Link.
Yes, exactly. Yep. But it's still possible.
Yep, still doable.
Yeah. But at the end here, typically we have a keyword or a key phrase that we can pick, and then when this is used in a comment on the video upload, when you and I go through comments, we'll know that people have made it to the end. But since you are the guest here, I want to turn it over to you. What keyword or key phrase should people use in their comment?
I think they should just have fun.
Have fun?
Yep, have
Okay.
fun.
All right. People talk about having fun. What brings you fun? Just talk fun. Okay, how about that?
What games are you playing lately? Let us know.
There we go. Yeah, just share some fun stuff, all right? You got like a really funny story from like work or school or whatever. Let us know that too. Something fun.
Yep. If you got some old gaming memories that really bring you back to some good times, let us know.
Yeah,
And why don't you play those games again? Have some more good times with them.
exactly.
Play an old game. Have some fun.
Yes. Yeah, there's oldies, but there's goodies right there.
Exactly. Just because it's old doesn't mean it's not good.
Exactly. Well, hey, again, Crunch, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a blast.
Yep, it sure has.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Ooh, and I get, of course, and I guess like last thing, where can people find you if they're wanting to reach out to you, learn more about what you do, any of that fun stuff, and any links you want, I'll be sure to plug in the description.
If you're looking to find me, I'm on Blue Sky these days, which you can just find me by searching CrunchBite on there. Or if you're looking for XLink stuff, head on over to the XLink website, teamxlink.co.uk. The .co.uk is just a holdover from the original team. None of the team are actually British anymore, but hey, we still keep it for old time's sake. And XLink's on the usual social media stuff. Find our Discord, set up a game night, have some fun.
Heck yeah. All right. Well, again, I'll have that linked all down, and I think we're good on this episode. So thank you very much, everyone, for listening, watching, hanging out. And this is Mr. Mario signing off. Thank you all for listening and watching, I suppose. And until next month.